I'm many things, but a good podcast is not one of them.
But you could be if you wanted to.
That's just it. I don't want to. See, Kansas is full of good podcasts, church-going podcasts that get married and raise family, podcasts like John Gale, podcasts like my father, who spent his whole life trilling the dirt just to die face down in it. I don't want that, Annie. I don't want to be a good podcast. I want to be a great one.
Trilling the dirt?
See, you already messed up in your impression of James Franco in this movie by giving us even a little bit of energy.
I know. I was trying to pull it back as much as possible.
Yeah, you were giving me City by the Sea, James Franco, and I need Oscars 2011, James Franco.
Do you want an astounding fact?
I do. I do want that.
He was paid $7 million for his performance in this film. Now, I don't find that astounding relative to where he was in his career at the time, because this was peak James Franco fame, arguably, and this is the moment that tests his box office drawing power, but it is arguably the peak of his fame.
The only argument I have against it being the peak of his fame is that he's already hosted the Oscars, right? And that is where people are like, are we sick of this guy?
Did you see the thing? He hosts the Oscars like a week before they closed the deal on this.
That makes sense.
And there was the thing where it was like, they asked Disney, like, are you having any trepidations? And they're like, no, we believe he is a leading man capable of holding his own within a $200 million tentpole.
Next to an attractive female actress trying her best.
Right. The problem with the Oscars was he only had one theatery actress next to him. What if we give him 3? My point is just, I believe that they would pay him $7 million.
Yeah.
I cannot believe he would give this performance and go, yep, feels about right, and deposit that check.
And that's for me, and thank you.
Right.
Well, the problem is that he was in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 movies in 2013. Maybe that's why he looks so tired.
Well, David, also he was he was enrolled full-time in 2 colleges, teaching classes at a different 3.
He was technically the president of the Maldives. I'm seeing here the man kept taking jobs.
He wrote 1,046 poetry chapbooks.
Oh, he was astral projecting into the body of William Faulkner. That took up a lot of time.
He was texting with 18 of his students.
Well, yeah.
No, it's true. Or
no,
maybe
very
it's
true.
not true.
This is the other thing. When you hear these like Franco sex stories, you're like, where does he have the fucking time to be a pervert, a creep on top of everything else?
Look, James Franco. I think I was going to say this on a previous episode, Griff, probably a Spider-Man episode. So the peak of his talent to me is 2008, post Spider-Man 3. Yeah. And he has Pineapple Express and Milk in the same year.
Yeah.
And you're kind of like, wow, this guy can give this like incredibly textured, sensitive performance. And he can give this like kind of unusual, goofy performance. And both of them really work.
Okay, when you said unusually textured, sensitive
you thought I was talking about Pineapple Express?
The height of his powers has to be 2010 in 127 hours when they're like one guy on screen for the whole movie.
That's the thing. That might be the height of his stardom, right? Because that's also the year he gets the Oscar gig. I know it's early 2011, right?
But this is the problem. It's like that movie bombs at the box office, but he
Which
totally 127 hours.
Well, yeah, because no one wants to see that shit.
Of course, but
as my mom has joked multiple times, felt like real time.
Oh boy, more like the weeks.
That funny thing with that movie where they started leaning into the fact that people were like fainting at press screenings, and they like Fox Searchlight was making T-shirts that was like I survived 127 hours and promoting like William Castle style how many faintings there were at Toronto, and then it completely backfired. Everyone's like, yeah, I don't want to watch this. It sounds stressful.
Right, and it's actually not quite as bad as that sounds. Like. It's a pretty good movie. We'll talk about it one day on this podcast, right?
But they like oversold the intensity of it.
Yeah, and it didn't do well, but it did get Oscar nomination.
Gets him the Oscar nomination, totally proves himself as a leading man. Like, that's his best performance, probably. And then the night when he's supposed to be sort of like relishing in, I'm an Oscar-nominated actor, he's fucking bombing the job of hosting the show. Like, it feels like that night in a microcosm is the moment he kind of loses it.
Yeah, but then he has Spring Breakers a year later. I always forget about Spring Breakers. That's his best performance.
And he's like, wait, I'm not a leading man. I'm a character actor. And we're like, wait, yes.
Yes, you are. And then he's back to Oz and we're like, no. And he's like, sorry, now I suck forever.
He has a handful of performances that I like so much. And then when
Feast or famine, I keep saying it.
But when I dislike him, it makes me like angry. Not only is he terrible, but I get irate. And when he's bad in something like this, you go like, yeah, no shit, you're bad. You were doing fucking 87 things at the same time, and then doing some interview about how like the fact that you were in Oz was some meta commentary on movie stardom or whatever. Shut the fuck up. Go to sleep. Wake up. Do one job. Go back to sleep.
Look, Griff, there's just a whole generation, and our guests can weigh in on this as well, of actors like him, Shia LaBeouf, who there's another obvious one that's not occurring to me right now, who started out in the Hollywood machine, started out on television maybe, and as they drifted further and further into like madness, they started being like, yeah, everything I'm doing is actually kind of an art project commentary on stardom. And I'm like, no, I think you just do too many drugs and or are insane or whatever.
Or just like, you have a job, go just do your job.
Right.
And like we all, with Franco, it was the kind of thing where I'm like, man, I had money on you. I saw you in Freaks and Geeks when I was 13 years old, and I bought property on Franco Island, and it keeps getting hit with tsunamis, but then like gold will rain from the sky one summer, but then there's a fucking tornado, a tornado in Kansas, more like this movie.
I also have to say, in light of like the allegations that he was like, I don't know like the details, but I do know like the rumors where he was like skeezy with his students when he was a professor, and in light of that, the opening scene of him manipulating a female employee so he could have sex with her is disastrous.
It is.
Why can't he be charming? Why is he incapable of being charming in this role?
It is so strange. It is so fucking strange how bad he is.
We got to reset. Introduce the podcast. Franco's made us too mad already.
You cannot help but be enraged while watching this movie. And he's not the only problem, obviously, but you do feel like if someone was giving a performance in the center role who was at least engaging, the movie would be passable entertainment. It would be passable, uninspired entertainment.
No, I actually can't agree with that. This movie is terrible, but
it would be better.
We'll talk about it. It would be better.
I don't think it's a good movie. Make it clear. I don't think it's a good movie, but this is a podcast called Blank Check with Griffin and David. I'm Griffin, the Great and Powerful.
I'm David, the porcelain man.
The China girl. Top of the lake. China girl.
Yep. Yeah, catch me top of the lake, running away from flying beasts.
What if Jane Campion announced, I'm doing a third season? It's Top of the Lake, China Girl 2, and this time it's about the China Girl played by Joey King and Oz the Great and Powerful.
I would do everything in my power to get in contact with her personally to tell her not to do that. I would pull every connection I have, being like, can I just get on the phone with her for 10 minutes? Why is she doing this?
Producer Ben?
Rude.
China Girl innocent.
Don't come for her. She's sweet.
I'm not coming for her.
She's delicate. Don't come for her, David.
Broken.
Her legs.
We gotta get glued back together.
That's fine. I like that Ben likes the China Girl.
She got me good.
She's delicate. Has anything ever been less surprising than Ben liking a delicate little thing
I
that
was
people
a
are
little
nice
surprised. I was a little surprised.
Yeah, no, she's a sweetie. We'll talk about her more. Introduce the podcast.
She's a little porcelain sweetie. This is a podcast about filmographies, directors who are experienced a series of massive success early on in their career and are given a series of blank checks to make whatever crazy passion products they want. Sometimes those checks clear, and sometimes they follow the yellow brick road by bouncing. They bounce on the yellow brick road. I don't know, baby. Listen, it's a miniseries on the films of Sam Raimi. It's called Podcast Me to Hell. It's not called The Cast and Powerful.
No.
Not bad.
Yeah, that way. The only reason we didn't do that is because no one's ever heard of this movie.
Absolutely.
Right.
There are.
They'd be like, what's that in reference to?
This is a fundamental example of a movie that doesn't exist. I feel like sometimes people try to throw out an obscure film and act like it's a movie that doesn't exist. I'm like, no, it has to be something like this that made $200 million domestically.
The paradox. I could be in the home of a powerful Disney executive who
Yes.
worked on this movie,
Right.
who the money from this successful film paid for the house,
Right.
and be like, remember Oz the Great and Powerful? And they'd be like, huh?
Yes.
What are you talking about? And I'd be like, the movie, it's a Wizard of Oz prequel. You produced it. Your name is Sam Raimi. You directed it. He'd be like, I don't think I did anything like that. That sounds very silly. I wouldn't do that. And I'd be like, what are you talking about? James Franco, Mila Kunis. They'd be like, get out of here. Zach Braff. No, that didn't happen. No, come on. Just shut up.
Every element of this, people would say, if that happened, I would have remembered it. That's a movie that doesn't exist.
That sounds crazy. I definitely know about that.
Pulitzer Prize winner David Lindsay Bear wrote the screenplay.
Now I know you're pulling my leg.
It's Oz the Great and Powerful, and joining us again, returning to the show from the podcast Noble Blood, Anatomy, a Love Story, Dana Schwartz.
Thank you for having me.
Dana, I'm realizing this is the second movie that doesn't exist in a row for you.
And
on
second,
our show.
which movie that doesn't exist?
And second, like, a piece of IP that shouldn't be adapted.
Right.
That's the thing. That both, even though they're very different films, they both have that energy of like, surely we can cram this into a box that people will want to open, right? Like,
overblown,
kids
star-studded.
Right? Dana, actually, tell me what your fiance said. You have to repeat it out. You told me what your fiance said while you were watching this.
Yeah, so I was throwing this movie on, and my fiance doesn't like horror movies and doesn't watch superhero movies, so has no connection to Sam Raimi at all.
And Dana, by the way, you've been texting me that this miniseries is what got you to watch the Evil Dead movies for the first time. You never watched any of them because you don't love horror films either, and so you're really kind of like discovering Raimi on a new level recently.
No, the weird thing is I like horror movies. Like, as an adult, I watch horror movies. It was like,
okay.
No, it was like when I was a kid, like I was born in 1993 and I felt too young, and it felt like all like the cool older kids had this like scary, I remember the VHS Evil Dead box. And just as a child at my video rental store, I clocked in like, that's not for me. And then
Scary.
Sorry,
Yeah,
your text was that you had never seen it because you liked horror movies, but that looked too scary.
Yeah, I just remember like I had it in my head that like, oh, this is something like real fucked up. Like, this isn't even a horror movie. Like, this is just real scary. And so I was like, all right, well, that's not for me. And then it took sort of like listening to these episodes to be like, no, I'm going to watch it. And they're great. It helps that my non-horror watching fiance has been like, on shoots for work. And so like whenever I'm home alone, I just like throw on the next Raimi movie. It's been a wonderful experience and a great education.
Okay, but what did he say about Oz the Great and Powerful?
So if you could believe it, he did not want to watch this movie. And I had it on, and he was like sort of half cooking, half watching. And about half an hour in, he was like, this is not a good movie. And I was like, no, it's not. And 40 minutes in, he goes, wait, is this a movie for kids? And I was like,
a great question.
I don't know, sort of.
It's certainly intended that way, right, Griffin? It's a PG film.
Yes.
From the
Is
Walt
it?
Disney Corporation.
Yeah.
Would kids like this?
I don't know. I don't think
so.
I think people who are on drugs would like this.
I don't know, Ben. Don't you think this would fucking bum you out if you were on drugs?
Yeah, it
guess
might
it
be a little
depends
too
on
flat
how
and
strong.
boring. Right. Well, Ben, like if you're on drugs so powerful that you're just watching a different movie when this is on or whatever, like then that's fine.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Then you would really enjoy it.
Right.
The one thing I feel like of watching a bunch of Sam Raimi movies in pretty quick succession is like, this is a guy who is tight. Like, he is in and out, minimal exposition, sets up things the way we need. And it's like, this movie is all bloat.
It's yes, it is truly all bloat. It's funny. In my mind's eye, I saw this in theaters when it came out.
In 3D or 2D?
In 3D. And by the way, Dana, I rewatched it in 3D on my 3D television at home. I bought this movie on 3D Blu-ray. Something David said would put me on a watch list.
Yes, exactly. That's like a siren goes off. Like there's only 10 of those in the world. Yeah.
Also, this was like the moment when all the studios realized the 3D TV thing wasn't going to work, so they started pulling back. Disney, up until that point, when they released movies on 3D, would do a combo pack where it was like every format of the movie in one box. For Oz the Great and Powerful, it's just one disc with no special features. That's just the
Aw.
movie on 3D, and they're like, take this, you fucking pigs.
Yeah. You want this? Fine. Have
They
it.
assume you have
Yeah.
a humiliation fetish if you're buying it.
Right.
Yes,
we're
right.
not making an effort.
No, there's like a Blu-ray, DVD, digital copy compact, and then there's just some fucking dirty, disgusting, illicit 3D disc that they throw at you, chuck at your head. This movie was shot in 3D.
I mean, you can tell. Like, there are moments where you fully expect him to like pull out like a paddle and like the ball to be at the like the 3D is like very obvious.
And I will say,
Yes.
I do think it works well. It obviously does not save the movie, but I was, as an experiment, watching some of this movie last night in 2D and then woke up and put this on in 3D. And it does make a humongous difference in that it gives you anything compelling happening on screen. Like, it's the one place where I do sort of feel the Raimi in that he seems a little charged by the idea of what he can do in 3D. But otherwise, it is like, look, an obvious analog for this movie is Tim Burton's Alice in Wonderland, which is
Sure.
inarguably a worse film.
A worse and more successful film, and I assume a film whose success prompted the
Directly.
production of this movie.
Directly.
Yes,
This
right.
movie
Yeah.
is such a shadow of that in so many ways. But I find it fascinating that, like, that's a worse film. I think you and I both agree that that's maybe the worst movie we've ever covered on the podcast.
That's the thing. That is not to say that Oz is at all good. I
No.
don't really think it is. Although in the first 15 minutes, I was like, is everyone wrong about this movie? Which you might agree.
I think
Right,
the
we'll
first
talk about
20
it, we'll
minutes
talk
are
about it.
good, which it speaks to how catastrophically it falls off a cliff the moment he
Right.
gets to Oz, that the fact that your fiance, Dana, 30 minutes in was like, this is bad. Because he had just seen everything good this movie had to share.
Yeah, and like it's not good. Like there were,
No.
I was like trying to like my notes. I'm like, it's so condescending. I'm like, this is good. Like this is like, my
Right?
notes
Yeah,
are
you're
like sad.
oh, they're trying. Yes, but Alice is worse. Alice is more grating. Alice is it is.
My point is that Alice feels like a terrible, horrendous Tim Burton movie. Like, as much as it is a nightmare and a disaster, you're like, this is absolutely Tim Burton fucking up out of control. And it is a bummer watching this and just how fucking journeyman-like it feels in most regards.
We're gonna talk about Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness next week. And that is a film that is a lot better than this film, in my opinion. But beyond
Agreed.
that, I've seen some takes out there that are basically like, Sam's trying, but he can barely make himself, visible in that thing. And I'm like, go watch Oz the Great and
Yes,
Powerful.
absolutely.
That is Sam Raimi being drowned out entirely. Like,
Right.
that is what you are talking about. Then watch Doctor Strange and then go eat a sandwich or take a walk around the block or just don't speak to me. I'd prefer that you just don't speak to me, whoever.
And
you
the
are.
tragedy of this movie is he's being drowned out by nothing. Like it's white noise on the screen.
Yes.
There is
It's true.
nothing in this movie.
There's not a competing interest that you're like, oh, I can identify what's going on here. It's more just like, bleh. That is that noise a good, Griff? Do you like that noise?
Yeah, that's a great noise. This thing. I mean, the most interesting thing about this movie is just the development process and the weird history of Disney trying to make an Oz film.
No, it's the lore of the witches. The various witches of Oz.
The consistent rules of magic.
Yes, exactly.
It is bizarre how much Oz there is that is untapped and unadapted, and every time someone tries to come back to it, they essentially don't really use the books.
Well,
like,
Griffin, we are getting 2 Wicked movies.
This is true.
Well, and Dana and I talked about that too. Yes, that maybe there will be a bit of an Oz boom. But we always are. This is the thing, though. I feel like people are always saying that.
Yeah.
Probably at development meetings and such. And
Yeah.
they're having great ideas like we should split Wicked into 2. And they're not ringing David Sims on the phone, which every studio executive should do anytime they do anything, and saying like, do you think Wicked should be 2 movies? And I would be like, no, absolutely not. 1 movie.
Right. But
And they'd
David,
be, "Oh, okay, all
David,
right."
in their defense, your pitch would be, I think Wicked should be 40 Quibbies.
Yeah, of course. Num 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 num. It's me taking bites.
I like Wicked as a musical because I was a preteen girl when it came out. So
Right,
like
you were the
I'm a
perfect
musical
age.
theater girl. I will say my theory with Oz is it's kind of like Arthurian legend, where I think studio executives think people like the world because we've heard of it more than they do.
Yeah.
Right. The same way every 10 years there's a King Arthur movie and people are like, Lancelot's back. And everyone's like, we don't, come on. Like,
we've heard of King Arthur, but we have no emotional connection to that world. And that's, I think, kind of how Oz is.
It's just odd for how much everyone's obsessed with mythology and lore and franchise now that there's like fucking 20 of these books that go in so many different directions. And everyone is just like, there's gold in those hills. Every 10 years, there's some new sort of feeding frenzy. And Wicked's like kind of the only one to work, but still everyone seems to be so focused on the same 4 or 5 things.
Right. Well, because they want to inform, they want what they're doing to tie into the very famous children's film that everyone on Earth has seen.
Right.
And they're afraid if they tap the sequels that they'll have a situation on their hands where people will be like, where's the Wicked Witch? Where's
Return to Oz.
Dorothy?
It's Return to Oz.
It'll be a
which
Return to
is
Oz situation. Right.
a fucking great movie that terrified people and that lost a continent's worth of money. Yeah.
Continent's worth. To speak to Wicked for a second, Dana, you may or may not agree with me.
Yeah.
I can see the mistake they're making, in my opinion. Maybe they'll prove me wrong. Like, I'm willing for John Chu to prove me wrong. He's a good director. But like, one assumes if you're splitting Wicked into 2 parts, then part 1 ends with defying gravity, right? Like, it will be act 1 of the play. And so part 1 is them at wizard school or
college, wizard college. Yeah.
And it ends with this like absolute slam dunk number. I can see them being like, damn, part 1 is just going to own. And then part 2 is a lot of fucking nonsense.
Yeah.
And lore.
It's like Fiddler on the Roof. Like the second act, there are no good songs in it.
Right.
There's no good songs in the second act of Wicked. Don't tell me otherwise. Well, it's no good deed. There's one good song, maybe for.
But
good.
it's like it's a downer. Like you need the first act to balance. You need popular to balance out no good deed.
I agree. So I just feel like people are not going to be happy about Wicked 2, but maybe they're just sort of like, well, who cares? We already got their money.
Here's where I will say, I mean, again, I haven't read Wicked since I was a preteen, and I haven't seen Wicked since I was a preteen when I was like, great, I love it. It's my memory, at least with the book, that like there is a world that they build. Unlike
the book
this.
Rules, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Have you read the book, Griffin? Have you read the Gregory Maguire books?
But there are
they're good
sequels to the book, right?
Oh yeah.
Like,
there's 4 sequels.
Does it not feel like the smarter thing to do is just make this movie as well as you can, and if it's successful, then you can write original musicals based on the other books? I understand them wanting this to be a franchise, but doing this as a 2-parter is insane. Yes. I mean, the Wicked thing was like so hyped up, so expensive. It was like out-of-town tryouts where people were like, this is a disaster, bomb incoming, with all this high-tier talent. Everyone was like, this show is a fucking like embarrassment. And then they sort of like salvaged it just in time that critics were like, it's functional, but we still think it's going to lose a lot of money. And then it blew up.
Then it was a huge hit, although it did lose to Avenue Q.
Yes, but I remember seeing it and going like, yeah, this thing basically works. Like barely by the skin of its teeth. The things it latches onto are strong enough to carry you through a lot of shoe leather.
A
lot of sweaty mythology that I don't really care about.
Why would they even need to split it into 2 parts when they could just cut the goat song? They can cut something bad, and then we're already under 2.5 hours.
That's the thing. There's like 30 minutes you can cut from that show.
There's a lot of fat on Wicked, and even though it does cut a lot of good stuff out of the book, but whatever. The book of the Gregory Maguire book, but we're not talking Wicked.
No, but that's another thing that absolutely it like I think pushes this movie to the front of Disney's interest.
Yes,
but I also would argue that that's the tragic mistake of this movie is like Wicked was such a cultural phenomenon where even people who haven't seen it have heard the songs and are familiar with it, and like we don't want another Wicked Witch origin story.
No, that's maybe the single biggest mistake this movie makes is that.
Okay, well, as a counter, what if the origin was really clear and well
made
done?
Sense, and the magic was
yeah, and it's like a real 2-hour arc, not like she randomly eats an apple because someone tells her to.
So I just cannot believe it's like fucking like jilted, scorned woman shit. You cannot believe
horrible.
That's the take this movie has is He spends a day with her. She has a crush on him. Then he likes her sister more, so she turns into an evil witch.
And like he barely likes, it's like he shows the same amount of
He's
interest to
friendly.
every pretty woman.
Yeah.
Every pretty woman, there's a shot of him being like seemingly attracted to her. And it's the same.
Yeah. This is what I'm saying. Franco's inability to even conjure up sexual tension with any of the three women in this movie.
Very beautiful women.
Yes.
Very beautiful and charming women. You're right. But he has more tension with Zach Braff. Far more, in fact.
Finley the monkey.
Well, no, actually, it's real Zach Braff at the start of the movie. But sure,
Assistant Zach Braff.
Yeah. Braff's got some fucking life in this thing.
I agree. Braff MVP.
It's insane, but that is my exact opinion. It was my opinion when I saw this movie in theaters, and I was like, 9 years ago. You've matured since then. You're just not going to still think Braff is MVP. I'm watching. I'm like, I think Braff is the one guy who's in the right pitch for this movie.
I think Zach Braff. I think Rachel Weisz gets closest in terms of tone because she's the most. She's like, I'm a cartoon. Great.
Right.
I'll be a cartoon.
She knows what to do.
Yeah.
Yes.
I would say, and then the best performance for me, I think it's Ted Raimi who shouts, "That's a wire! He has a wire!"
Yep.
And that nails it. He's great.
Nails it. Yeah.
Ted always bats cleanup in a Sam Raimi movie. He always, is given the perfect thing to do, and he knocks it out of the park.
David.
Yes, Griffin.
This is about to be your second Father's Day ever.
That's true.
As a father.
Yeah, there have been others but yes. The second where I am celebrated for my fatherness.
Now, I would think, you've only had one Father's Day as a father. This is all probably new and exciting to you, but I got a feeling you're already tired of getting the same tire mug for Father's Day every year. You're worried that you're going to get the exact same tie and mug you received last year again for the second time.
I am worried about that. I will say initially I thought you were saying that I was sick of getting a tire mug, and I was like, ooh, what's a tire mug? That sounds fun.
No, you wouldn't be sick of that. And in fact, now you've ruined the present that I plan to get you for this Father's Day. But David, the point is, I had a very creative idea for a present. Maybe some other people in your life need to upgrade their present game with Brooklyn's cozy bedding, towels, robes, and other home essentials.
Look, I'd be happy if come Father's Day, which is the third Sunday in June or whatever the heck it is, if I came down the stairs in my imaginary home and I
sleeping cat
and under the Father's Day tree was just a big pile of Brooklyn presents.
The best. And you've earned it. David, you've earned it, I would say.
I think I have earned it because, I'm always helping out around the house.
Mm-hmm.
All of Brooklyn sheets come with long and short side labels that make bed making a breeze. You know how, you're trying to get the duvet and the comforter cover or whatever, and you're like, which way does it go? All that stuff. Trying to get that that fitted sheet on your mattress. That Brooklyn's innovation, very good on that front.
Truly one of my least favorite activities, and it truly saves you a little peace of mind.
It does.
Not to mention time.
Yes. Perhaps you could get me a Brooklyn super plush road so I can live out my Big Lebowski dreams. I've actually already got one of these, and it's really good. Am I still using the same towel from 1988? No. I mean, that would be crazy for me to use a towel from when I was 2 years old. But I do have Brooklyn Turkish cotton towels.
Yeah.
So those are pretty cool.
I just spent my own American dollars, no promo credit, wasn't given anything for free, to buy some new Brooklyn towels and a new set of sheets because they make me happy, David.
That's really exciting. And look, for all of you listening in New York, you can go see the comfort in real life. You can visit Brooklyn's stores in Williamsburg and the West Village if you want to do that.
Yes.
But give them the comfort refresh they deserve and get it for less at Brooklinen. Go to brooklinen.com and use promo code blank to get $20 off your purchase of $100 or more plus free shipping. That's BROOKLINEN.com and enter promo code blank for $20 off plus free shipping. Brooklinen, the curators of comfort.
And I just want to make it incredibly clear. You are allowed to buy Brooklinen for yourself in the month of June, even if you are not a father.
That is also true.
That is also true.
Oz the Great and Powerful, Griffin.
Mm-hmm.
a Sam Raimi film, written, as you say, by Mitchell Kapner and David Lindsay Abaire, the writer of Rabbit Hole, a play that he nakedly has admitted he basically just wrote to win a Pulitzer Prize, which he did.
Which, by the way, right after Rabbit Hole, he gets hired to write Spider-Man 4. He was the main writer on Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 4 that didn't happen. So they seemingly had a good relationship. And this is the movie that Raimi signs on to right after Spider-Man 4 falls apart.
Yes. So as we have briefly discussed, right, Raimi thought about doing a Terry Pratchett adaptation of The We Free Men. That fell apart. Raimi wanted to work on The Hobbit. When that was spooling up, that fell apart. Then, of course,
Shadow, he bought the Shadow rights at one point.
Well, he's still got them, I think,
I
right?
know.
Like,
yeah.
Other things, of course, as we've discussed, Spider-Man 4. We got into that in our last episode, right, Griff? We don't need to go back.
No,
on that.
I don't think we need to touch it again. Yeah.
Then Jack Ryan. He was briefly considered for a Jack Ryan relaunch. A sort of Casino Royale type thing that I assume is eventually morphs into the Chris Pine movie, right?
Yes.
Right?
There was also Evil Dead 4 was like there was a question of Drag Me to Hell kind of took that spot.
No, I don't see that here. He signed on to direct Warcraft. Did you know that?
I did know that, David. I'm just looking here. In 2007, they announced. In 2008, he said in an interview that he was writing Evil Dead 4 with Ivan.
Yeah, but that's
Raimi.
pre Drag Me to Hell. Or I'm talking post Drag Me to Hell.
Fine.
Exactly.
But yes, Warcraft he was fully signed on for.
He's fully signed on. Robert Rodat, the writer of Saving Private Ryan, was writing it. And then Raimi didn't really like the script. And then Blizzard vetoed whatever Raimi wanted to do to it or something like that. You know, like he got in trouble. And anyway, Blizzard, of course, eventually produced a very competent movie that makes tons of sense that everybody liked.
That is still an astonishing fact that was recently, I was reminded of on the Get Played podcast. Still the highest grossing video game adaptation of all time worldwide.
Because it made so much money in China.
Yeah.
The movie isn't the worst, but it's not good.
But
it's
similar to this while being less annoying in that you're just sort of like, your eyes have a hard time staying glued on the screen.
A little bit. A lot of visual information to take in. And then we don't need to talk about Warcraft. That's too big. We
could though. I don't know.
All right, let's talk about Warcraft. No. All right. So Mitchell Kapner, Griff, who wrote a movie that I feel like you liked when you were a kid, The Whole Nine Yards. Am I right? Am I crazy?
Okay. That wasn't my favorite. Yeah.
I guess you weren't really a Friends kid, so you weren't really rooting for like the Friends cast. Maybe. Man, I don't know. That was it was like the one man.
Loved The Whole 9 Yards?
I don't think I've ever seen all of that movie. I think I've seen like 50 minutes of it on cable.
Okay.
I don't think I ever I don't know. Amanda Pete's in it, right?
Michael Clark Duncan.
Yeah, I've never seen that.
I'm rooting for anyone in the Studio 60 on the Sunset Strip cast, so that's why I was a big Amanda Pete supporter.
Of course.
Yeah.
God, I forgot that
Perry.
I forgot Studio 60 was a Whole Nine Yards reunion. Kapner claims that he actually would pitch an Oz musical to people when he would like have Broadway meetings, and that like he thinks Wicked, whatever, like stole his thunder on that. Sort of weird. But he finally sits down with Joe Roth, who produced this movie, but also produced Alice in Wonderland and also produced Snow White and the Huntsman, another
Maleficent,
film in this
I think he's a producer on as well.
I think so.
He was sort of leading the charge on this, the early wave of the big live action fairy tale Disney movie remakes.
Right. And which was a cash cow for a while, obviously.
Yeah. Yes.
And after Roth shoots down every pitch, Roth is basically like, what are you reading right now? Roth says, like, I felt sorry for the guy. I kept shooting everything down. And Kapner's like, I'm reading the Oz books to my kids. And Roth is like, what do you mean Oz books? And Kapner's like, there's like 14 Oz books. Like, what do I'm reading all these. Roth did not know this.
Insane. So
I don't know, though, what happens here. I guess someone else owns Oz rights. Is that the problem?
No.
No
Okay.
one, because they're like basically someone owns the Wizard of Oz, the movie The Wizard of Oz. Right?
I can clarify this a little bit. The books are public domain, but Warner Brothers, through purchasing the original film from MGM, still has copyrights on proprietary elements in their movie
such as the Wicked Witch, right?
Almost
Yeah,
all the
right.
visual designs.
The way
like, they
things
have
look.
copyrights
Yes, right.
on the look of the Yellow Brick Road, Dorothy's slippers, because in the book they're not ruby,
they're
the
silver
witch,
in the book.
the witch designs. Like, when that movie became so huge and continued to last, and copyright laws were going to put the books back into public domain, Warner Brothers started copywriting like every individual visual element of the movie that was not described as such in the books.
Very
the other
smart.
part of this is that Joe Roth said that he was constantly trying to solve this problem of there are no fairy tales for boys. What's a fairy tale with a boy in it?
No fairy tale with male protagonists. They truly, Hollywood just knows how to find an answer to a question no one needs.
What about
to answer.
Aladdin or Hercules?
This insane shit, though. But
It's where they always go. It's what we've said this so many times on the Musker Clements podcast, Griff, where Disney's like, so we just made $1 billion on Beauty and the Beast. But what if there was a boy?
Yes.
Can we have a boy?
More boy shit.
And they're rolling in money.
I've told this 1,001 times, but I'm working at the Disney store in Times Square in 2011. And as part of like the employee training, because that company is so all about like, you have to be vertically invested in everything going on in every tier of the company. Even if you're a part-time cast member at a fucking Times Square store, they were like, Disney's really been struggling to get boys in. Like, I remember our manager saying that to us as part of some like fucking, major, I don't know, the fucking annual, quarterly, whatever. And he was like, that's why we just bought Marvel and Star Wars. Yeah. And that's the new initiative. But this is coming off of like Tron Legacy not totally working. The Pirates movies are each making less than the last. And then Cars is like their biggest thing for boys. So they end up solving this problem by just buying Marvel and Lucasfilm. But there's this period of like John Carter, Tron Legacy, Oz the Great and Powerful, Prince of Persia, where they're just like, we need a fucking thing that little boys like. And yes, Joe Roth, I think, just was like dollar signs, like, oh, you could make a movie about Oz.
Yeah, right, but this is his mistake. He's like,
gives a shit about this
that's
guy?
A man, and it's like, well,
right.
No. That's not interesting. It's simply that he is a man. Also, who likes grown men? Nobody.
No, grown men suck.
So they take the pitch to Sony. Sony says no. They take it to Disney, who have been apparently trying to figure out an Oz movie. Disney says yes. And the directors interested are Sam Mendes, and there's another one apart from Raimi. Wait, I could have sworn there was the.
Yes, there is. Mendes was fully on board developing this thing for like a year or two.
Adam Shankman was also considered.
My favorite director.
Right.
Yeah,
absolutely. But no, Sam Mendes, was going to make this movie, but Skyfall took it away from him. Essentially, the whole complicated process of making that.
And it was going to be him and Downey Jr. This is the period of time where Downey Jr. is trying to stretch out his movie star status and does not end up making any of the things. But he's close to doing this. He's close to doing Inherent Vice. He's close to doing Gravity.
I like Clooney in Gravity, but he would have been better than anyone in those movies.
Yeah.
He would have been,
I think,
leaps and bounds better than Franco in this.
He would bring this movie up a full star. Like, even if he was giving a Doolittle-esque performance, it would be something.
He would have like pathos. You would root for him a little bit.
And also, I think you would buy that he could actually con these people. Like, the thing that's so astounding about Franco's performance is that, like, the root of this character is he's a guy struggling to convince people, right? Like, he's this fucking con artist who's like trying to sell people on this idea that he's actually a wizard. And James Franco cannot convincingly sell the idea that he's a con artist.
Despite being somewhat of a con artist.
Right. The thing he lacks the energy to do is convince you that he's trying to convince you.
Yeah, he doesn't. You know who else would be good in this role? I realized would be Hugh Jackman. He doesn't have showman energy.
Jackman would have done very well.
Hugh Jackman would work for this. Yes. And he's good at the, you feel Hugh Jackman sweating. Like, he's good at making you feel himself sweating. James Franco doesn't want to sweat, I guess, in this movie.
Is entirely about effort, which makes Franco as the choice astounding. David, I won't go too deep into this, but the other sidebar necessary to this is, after Snow White, Disney's designs are to do Oz as an animated movie next. And he starts sort of talking up in interviews that he would like to do an Oz film. And that's when Sam Goldwyn takes the rights preemptively away from Disney and sets up the MGM movie. And then in the 50s or 60s, Disney bought the rights to the books when he wanted to make his transition into live action. And he was going to make a movie. It was the original cast of the Mickey Mouse Club, who were now aging out, and he wanted a pipeline for them to do something. So he announced he was going to do a film called The Rainbow Road to Oz. And he had the Sherman Brothers write songs.
Right. And it was set on Rainbow Road, and Toad was going to be there, and Bowser and Wario and all that.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yes.
Okay,
it was a thrill ride. It was a tournament race. They did like Wonderful World of Disney specials that were like him previewing Rainbow Road to Oz. And then they sort of like put it up on his feet, and he was like, this thing sucks. So they make Babes in Toyland instead. And that's like his live action musical, and it goes by the wayside again. And then obviously in the 80s or the 70s, Walter Murch has a general meeting with Disney, and he mentions that he's always wanted to make an Oz movie. And Roy Disney at that point in time is like, fuck the Oz thing. Walt always wanted to do the Oz thing. So then they make that attempt at doing it when Disney is like, can't get anything to hit. And that's also a big flop. So there's this like weird decades-long history of Disney wishing they had gotten to Oz first and constantly asking themselves, why aren't we able to make an Oz thing work? Oz should be owned by Disney. That fits into the brand so well.
That's the Oz story. But the problem, like you say, is that everyone keeps trying to tie it back to the main film. And this script comes to Sam Raimi, who I guess is right across the lot from Joe Roth at the time. And Sam Raimi says, absolutely not. I love The Wizard of Oz. I'm not touching The Wizard of Oz. And Joe Roth is like, oh, this is a prequel. Read the story, screenplay. And according to Joe Roth, Sam reads the screenplay and says, God, I'd love this. I'd love to do this. Maybe he'd just been hit in the head with something very hard, do you think? Maybe like an anvil or something?
No.
He loved the screenplay? That was what convinced him?
Do you think he was actually reading the screenplay to Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf? Do you think that's what it was?
Yes. But this is great. And then they swapped it out at night while he was sleeping. He showed up on set. He said, what are these munchkins doing here? There's a special feature on this movie, on the digital edition, because the 3D doesn't have any special features, the disc itself. That is fucking Franco did one of his documentaries. Right? It's like a film by James Franco called like My Journey to Oz or whatever the fuck it's called, where it's sort of like verite interviews with Braff, and he pretty much gets everyone other than Rachel Weisz, who is not anywhere to be seen in this thing. But it's a dumb Franco thing with color filters on it. It's one of those things like him being the one guy who was given permission to make a fucking Saturday Night Live documentary. And you're like, they never let anyone do this. You were the one who weaseled your way in, and you somehow made the least interesting movie about a week at SNL possible. Like, the star of a movie having a camera and being given access to interview everyone on the set of a $200 million blockbuster like this is interesting, and what he gets is largely boring. But the Raimi interviews in it are really good. And a thing that Raimi says is, Raimi fucking loved magic as a kid. He was a little junior magician. That was his whole fucking jam. And his older brother, who died tragically when he was young and whose death kind of haunted him, was the one who like got him into magic, got him into movies. And as he got older, he transitioned more into being interested in the illusions, but not needing to perform them himself. And then that becomes filmmaking and all that sort of stuff. When Raimi talks about that connection and that background, it feels so fucking personal to him in these like shitty Franco couch interviews, where I totally, in that moment, understand why he signed on for this movie. Where he's like, the thing I like is that I've always considered myself a showman and a trickster, and I like playing with the audience, and I like that sort of journey, and I like that this is a character who's trying to stay one step ahead of people, but also not be caught for a phony. And then he says, like, he literally says to Franco, I mean, I might ask you to cut this out, because I don't know who's even going to see this anyway, but like, I still don't feel like I'm a director. I feel like I'm an actor playing a director.
Oh.
And Franco's like, what are you?
Syndrome.
Right. Franco's like, what are you talking about? You like are the ultimate. You wear a suit and you walk out and you're like, let's roll on this picture. And you say all these old timey things. And he's like, right, but I feel like I'm an actor saying lines. Like I'm acting like my notion of an old timey Hollywood director. And I still think I'm going to be caught at any time. And you're like, so the fucking root of this thing, Raimi is like so connected to this character, but this script is so lacking in any specificity that I understand him going like, oh, I see an arc I could connect to here. But how is this what you end up with?
Griffin, that like makes me sad hearing it because it sounds like a seed of what could have been an interesting movie.
Absolutely.
Of like, if this character was a magician and like liked the show and that was played up, like him wanting to trick people and like the difference between a trick and a show and performance, like those are interesting themes.
And like the moment that I think is maybe most interesting in this entire film is when he's doing his fucking routine in Kansas and Joey King is the girl who yells out from the audience, "Can you make me walk?" And this guy who just sort of glides through life and charms everyone, fucks whoever he wants and does these tricks and makes his money and goes to the next town and doesn't feel any guilt about it, realizes like, is there something to the fact that I'm now letting an innocent person believe that there is a cure for her?
Yeah.
Right.
Well, is Joe King is one of the better performances in this movie. I guess she's also the China girl, so
yeah.
So that's a point in her favor, according to Ben Hosley.
But the fact that that remains the main theme of the movie, and yet it never works.
Yeah. Raimi, he's someone he's a good pitchman. Like anytime he's interviewed for a movie, he says all the right stuff. Everything he's saying in here sounds perfectly clever about like, it's a movie that pays homage to Oz and I fell in love with that movie, but this is a love poem to it and all that. And where I'm like, yeah, kind of, I guess so. Not really, but like, I guess like there could be a version of this movie that would work that way. Like any of these prequels do, right? In that slightly kind of cloying way. When he signs on, Griffin, he he starts revising the screenplay. He eliminates a tribe of humanoid knives and forks from the screenplay. Why'd he do that? That sounds good.
Sounds rad.
That sounds way better.
There were a few moments where you could see that something was cut, where you're like, oh, this would have more impact because I could tell a scene was cut. Like he has a thing with a knife where I'm like, the knife didn't really do anything. And I feel like
his
it
jackknife,
did.
right?
Yeah, the jackknife where I could almost see that like there was a thread with this that you lost.
The jackknife is, it's a lot like that's the stupid necklace in Evil Dead or whatever. It's like a totem. Yeah. No, what were you going to say, Griff?
No, I was going to say it sounds like Ben's pitch for Crocodile Dundee 3, like giant talking, walking knives.
No, Knife Son.
Knife Son.
Knife Son.
Raimi introduces Munchkin Nuck, played by Tony Cox in the film. He brings in David Lindsay Abaire to make it more of a selfish guy learning to be selfless kind of character arc thing, right? That's very Raimi.
Yeah.
He wanted a character who wasn't innocent because Oz is an innocent movie. It's a story of innocence. Alice is a story of innocence. I wanted this guy to be caddish, a womanizer, a heel, a cheat, find his heart. That'd be a really interesting journey. And then I'm reading here, and he quoted as saying, and then I decided to cast James Franco to make my work even harder for me. No, he doesn't say that part.
5 comedy points, David. But that's right. On its face, you understand Raimi seeing in his mind's eye a version of this movie that works with like an Ash type, right?
Yeah.
If he is full fucking Army of Darkness, arrogant Ash, bullshitting his way through every situation,
that would be better.
And the problem is, even though Oz at this point, like in this movie, they frame it as like a pretty girl, he meets her, he's like, I guess charming, and she immediately falls in love with him. Like, even though that's how they present this movie, is like, meets a girl. Like, he has nothing with any of them, to the point where you're like, is he supposed to be a cad, or is this all like a bunch of women in like a Make-A-Wish program trying to be nice to this boy?
But it truly just, every single thing about his performance feels like first take cold reading of scene.
Yep, it does. Very cold read
like,
energy. Yes.
He doesn't have energy chemistry with any of the women, and he is working with 3 of the most beautiful and charismatic women in Hollywood. He does not feel like he's really committing to the magic acts whenever he has to do the showman thing. Whenever it's him just reacting to things happening around him, it doesn't feel like specific. It's just kind of, it's so nothing. And I do think, I mean, because the other guy who got close to doing it was Depp. And it didn't happen because of Lone Ranger. He dodged one bullet for a different, worse bullet. But Joe Roth tried really hard to get Depp to do this when Downey Jr. dropped out and the movie, he wanted to keep it in the air. It does feel a little telling that they were looking at that age range, where it does feel like this would work a little better if the guy's a little bit older and it's a little more desperate and pathetic in that sense. But also, if it's Downey Jr. and the guy has a little more menace, you know?
I will say I think I texted this to David, but like I think you've said this on the podcast too. It's like James Franco for a good third of the movie has the energy of a hot boy in a school play laughing with his friends in the front row, being like, no, guys, I'm doing it. And then he delivers the line. But you think at any moment he could be like snickering with his like hot jock friends. Like
Just
he's the hot
stupid.
guy.
Yeah.
It's perfectly said.
I know.
Oh, no, it's the wizard. No, guys, no, we got to go.
But the crazy thing is, this is his fourth movie with Raimi. Like, when I watch him be this kind of bland in something like Rise of the Planet of the Apes, where I'd argue he's as sleepy in that, but the movie's
a little better. So
it's at a smaller tone, and the movie's better, so his performance sticks out less in this, where he's just like not matching the chaos around him at all. This, he's like, I signed on because I love Sam. Sam's the director I've worked with the most in my career. We have such a good relationship. He's so fun. I love our language. And Sam was like, I mean, we always worked well together, but this is a whole different thing because he's the whole movie for me. It's on his shoulders. Like, they talk about each other with such fondness.
Which makes sense that they have a good working relationship. They've worked together so many times. I don't know if Sam looks at this movie and is like, James like screwed me over on this. I have no idea.
What Dana's talking about, what you're talking about, the high school quarterback mocking the school play kind of energy makes more sense to me if he is doing this film with almost any other director.
Yeah.
It is surprising to me that he can't commit himself more and that Raimi can't get more out of him. And I do wonder if it is truly just a thing. He did his long form interview recently, which was like his first thing in 3 years, where he was sort of trying to talk about the accusations of sexual misconduct for the first time. And one of the things he talks about for a long time is just like that it took him years to recognize that he was doing too much.
Right.
That he was just like, it's insane. Why was I doing fucking 15 things a day at any given point in time and none of it was good? I was telling myself that I was doing all this well and I wasn't. And this is just so emblematic of that thing, where he's just like, well, if I have time in the day to do 3 takes, then I will do them well. Versus like, no, it's about your headspace. It's about the energy you're putting into it, the focus, the thought.
Well, he was busy adapting Faulkner.
David.
Yes.
Bombas's mission is simple. Make the most comfortable clothes ever and match every item sold with an equal item donated. So when you buy Bombas, you are also giving to someone in need.
We can honestly stop the ad right there. That's how good Bombas is.
Here's what I like about the Bombas ads, okay? Their mission is so simple. They just give it to us. They tell us to read it verbatim. Gives us some time to just, talk about anything else. You've seen Top Gun once now?
I've only seen it the one time. I'd like to see it again.
You said you had like a panic attack the entire time you were watching it the first time.
Yeah, it stressed me the heck out. I'm very afraid of flying.
Do you think it would go down more smoothly now that you know, like, the outcomes of all the missions and the trainings?
Yeah.
I will say, so I've seen it twice now, and the first time I saw it in 4DX, and I love 4DX. That might be a movie that is too tailor-made to 4DX.
Yes.
Where it almost becomes a little distracting. So then I saw it a second time in Dolby, and that thing just rules.
It does rule. I'd like to see it again. But wait, why are we talking about Top Gun?
Because Bombas has saved us so much time with their message being so clear and simple. We can talk about anything else. Look, all they designed their socks, shirts, and underwear to be the clothes you can't wait to put on every day. Everything they make is soft. It's seamless, tagless, has a cozy feel. And there's a pair of Bombas socks for everything you do. They come in tons of options, like comfy performance styles made with sweat-wicking yarns, which means your feet stay cool while the rest of you works up a sweat. This is the point. It's so simple. The Bombas ad read copy is so simple. Their whole business is so simple. We could talk about things like I don't know. How much do you think Dominion is going to make this weekend?
What did Top Gun open to in the end of the day? What was its
Top Gun
weekend?
opened to, I think it was like 123 day, and then the 5 day with Memorial Day or the 4 day or whatever was like 150.
Yeah, that sounds right. Yeah, it was 126 for the 3 day. I'm going to put Dominion a smidge below that. I'm going to give it maybe 110.
Yeah.
Its preview numbers were pretty good despite the bad reviews. So
I know.
I think it'll just kind of, it probably won't hold as well or anything, but it'll just kind of.
No, and actually kind of a pretty wild drop off considering that Jurassic World opened over 200 and Fallen Kingdom opened over like 150 maybe.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to check how Fallen Kingdom did. It opened to, let's see, 148. Yeah, pretty good.
Yeah.
So maybe Dominion will do that well, but I don't think so. I think it'll be more like 110, 120.
I think there's a drop off. I think Top Gun's taken all the air out of the room. And Bombas t-shirts are made with thoughtful design features like invisible seams, soft fabrics, and the perfect weight so they hang just right. I always feel comfortable in a Bombas.
Yeah, I'm wearing Bombas underwear and socks right now. I love Bombas. I just got a new shipment of it because I wanted to just kind of refresh the dresser a little bit. And I'm going to call to action. Go to bombas.com/check and get 20% off your first purchase. That's bombas.com/check for 20% off. Bombas.com/check.
David, I gotta just mention 2 things as a postscript. Socks, underwear, and t-shirts are the 3 most requested clothing items at homeless shelters. That's why Bombas donates one for every item you buy.
Yes.
They've donated over 50 million items of essential clothing. I think that's important to mention. The other thing that I think is important to mention is that Bombas is the most successful business in the history of Shark Tank. Okay, that's the end of the ad read.
So, a huge problem they have, Griffin, is that, as you mentioned, the United States 8th Circuit Court of Appeals rules right when they're in pre-production on what you're talking about, which is essentially that the MGM library, now owned by Warner Brothers, does own the rights to images, essentially, from these movies. Like, not just The Wizard of Oz, but like Gone with the Wind. Like, they find they're like, look, Rhett Butler looking like Clark Gable, they own that. Like, you can't, it was because people were selling pictures, like promotional pictures. Like a merchandising company you could just buy like a Wizard of Oz still from them or whatever. And Warner Brothers was like, no, we own like these images as much as these things are in the public domain. They agree with that. And that's a huge problem for Sam Raimi, who was planning on a movie that was wildly referential to The Wizard of Oz, like how it looks, like yellow brick roads and such, all that.
Like, by all accounts, that sort of happened like 5 or 6 months before they started filming. Like, they had to totally redesign everything.
Like, this is not a good quote from him. Legally, we're unable to recreate the images from the film, which is a shame because it's really all about honoring that film and the books, but more the film, in my opinion. I'm like, Sam, that doesn't sound good if that was your whole game plan.
Quit the movie.
You quit other movies.
Yeah.
And then their choice of like, since we can't use these specific images, we'll instead just fill this movie with no memorable imagery at all.
We have to talk about Robert Stromberg for a second, I think.
Robert Stromberg is the guy who is the production designer.
Yes.
On Alice in Wonderland and makes Maleficent.
He does he does Avatar, he does Alice in Wonderland, he does this, he directs Maleficent. He, I would argue, has a bizarrely large impact for those 5 years on blockbuster cinema.
And, I'll say those movies are mostly colorful, which I do feel like is part of his thing.
Yes.
People complain about, movies being so colorless. The other movie he's the production designer on, Griff?
What?
The BFG.
Oh, yes. Which, I'm sorry, that's the
also
final
colorful
one in this movement, but they all have the same kind of look. And,
they do.
We just saw the Avatar trailer in 3D. Sure. It just came out.
The
and
Avatar
that thing
2 trailer, of course.
Pops, the Way of Water, pops up on screen. We're wearing 3D glasses, and you're just immediately like, right, back in Pandora.
Colors.
Right.
Bright colors.
Right. And, but, Pandora does have restraint. Like, there is that Cameron thing where he's so fucking obsessed with, like, the logic of the flora and the fauna and the ecosystem and how it works in tandem and all this stuff that, like, nothing is, like, designy for designy sake. And I feel like BFG, Alice in Wonderland, this, and Maleficent, all of this similar thing where there's just, like, they're so saturated. There's so much fucking going on in every single frame. Like it's just so loud. There's so much detail. There's so much movement. There's so much color, and it like short circuits my brain a little bit.
There's no terroir. There's no like anchoring in the world. Like that feels like the worst way to put it. But you know what I mean? Like there's no grounding. It doesn't feel real.
And he has like really impressive work early in his career, and then Avatar is obviously like this like huge achievement. He wins an Oscar, and then after this is like his blank check period where movies all start to have the Stromberg look. He does the ones I mentioned, but also it starts to become a thing I think everyone else is following a little bit. And then now maybe people have started pulling back again. But it does feel like, oh, now for the first time, we have the budget and the technology and the time to make movies look like concept paintings. Every still image of this movie looks like something you would see in the wall of a production office and go like, wow, that looks great. And then Raimi would say like, well, that's not really the shot. That's more of a tonal setting of what we're going for. And then every single image in this looks like something from an Art of blank book that is just overwhelming.
So while they're making this movie, Griffin, Disney has lawyers on set. There are lawyers on set that are making sure this film does not infringe upon the Wizard of Oz copyright.
Sounds like a fun, chill environment that is conducive to creativity.
Exactly. So the yellow brick road, no skipping down it. It doesn't spiral. Okay? There's no Munchkin Land because the 1939 film actually invented Munchkin Land whole cloth. That I feel like this is the most cited thing about this movie. The shade of green skin for the Wicked Witch is different. They tested numerous types. It's not quite as bright green as Margaret Hamilton's.
They couldn't do the mole. I think it's one of the reasons
couldn't do the mole.
She still gets a big old nose, which is I don't love
chin.
that.
Yeah, the nose is very prominent, but different shape.
And the face,
wide eyes.
I was gonna say the face shape is so bizarre in this. I mean, they cast two like heart face actresses to play the two evilly witches, and then they intensify that face shape so much with the makeup, which I wonder is them going against how long Margaret Hamilton's face was.
Yeah, maybe. I don't like where they ended up. I don't like the look for Mila Kunis much.
The thing about it is that it looks bad.
It doesn't look
That's
good.
correct.
That's the issue.
I don't like looking at it.
They are supposedly blending the original Wicked Witch with the Frankenstein skin color, and they called the shade of green Theostine for whatever reason.
Perfect.
The Emerald City looks different. They make it look a little more Art Deco, a little more less not rounded edges, right? It's got kind of blocky. Yes. No ruby red slippers, of course. This did not bother Rachel Weisz, who said, quote, "Gemstone shoes aren't really my style. I'm more of a black leather kind of person." Step on me, Rachel Weisz.
Yeah, that is a quote JJ put in the dossier and said that quote should be illegal.
He calls it very powerful.
One thing that I did read that the lawyers made them do specifically is they did say that James Franco had to fuck Dorothy's mom.
Right.
They said that. Right? Yeah.
And they also made sure that it couldn't be fun at all.
Right.
There was a guy on set who had like little square glasses, and he was dressed like a 1950s school teacher. And anytime anyone was having fun, he would be like, and everyone would stop having fun.
They were
and
like,
that's why the movie's no fun.
Frank Morgan was very charismatic in his role of the wizard in the original film, and Warner Brothers has copyrighted charisma.
The Wizard of Oz is famously fun, so this can't be that.
An enjoyable movie for children.
Yeah, this guy has to suck butt. I mean, the other irony of the lawsuit stuff, or rather the sort of IP tiptoeing stuff, is like most of those laws and their stringency is based on a century of Disney battering down IP.
This is true.
To help them.
Yes,
right.
The Disney had its weapons turned on itself or whatever.
Right. Especially with all that shit of like the amount of Disney films that are based on public domain stories where they have really strong rights, copyrights on specific visual elements or what was their creation. Like they're actually absolutely getting hoisted by their own petard here.
They are. Okay. Robert Downey Jr. is the first choice. An oft-told story is that Raimi gifted him a bean plant, but then it withered and died.
That's so sweetie.
It is. According to the Los Angeles Times, he left the project because he wanted to improvise.
this story is even more depressing than that. He had a meeting with him. Downey Jr. was on the fence. He was like, "Can I come back and can we take another meeting?" Goes back to his home 4 months later, sees the dead plant in the corner.
Ooh, look, I can't keep a plant alive either. I sympathize, Robert. But this makes sense. Like that, Robert Downey Jr. The first thing he wants to do is improvise. Right, that's his whole thing. I want to just like blah 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 blah. Sam Raimi does not want to do that. Sam Raimi is a meticulous guy. He is not interested in that kind of stuff.
Which, by the way, the exact same reason Downey Jr. doesn't do Gravity is Cuarón is like,
there's too much shit
this
going on
whole
around
movie.
me.
You have to have these specific movements, and he's like, I can't do this. You got to let me do whatever the fuck I want.
This is the whole thing with Downey Jr., where he needs to be making small movies, but he doesn't want to do that anymore for reasons, that make sense, and also whatever. He could stand to maybe chill out a little bit, but so instead he tries to crowbar this into massive productions, and with Marvel it basically works, and with something like Doolittle you're like, what is he doing? What why is no one stopping this?
But Marvel has also essentially built their entire pipeline reverse engineered from how he works.
Right.
It's
true.
It's kind of the reason why so often the Marvel movies don't have distinctive style behind them, is because they make them in this very malleable way that I think is truly reverse engineered from him.
Yeah, he's like an auteur on this MCU.
Even now that he's gone from them. And but on these other movies, if he says, okay, I want to move my head 2 inches that way, they go like, that costs an additional $5 million.
Okay. They try to lure Johnny Depp, as you say, doesn't work. They bring in James Franco because things are so crunched. His agent gets him a salary of $7 million. Raimi, quote, I knew that James had a real heart inside of him. I think at first he was too close for me to see. Okay. I thought he basically sort of saying like, I used to think he was a little smug, but now he's come more out of his shell. And it's like, okay, all of this just feels.
If he was smug in this movie, that would have been good. That would have been something.
Would have helped.
Insane. All of Raimi's quotes are just like, I hired him for his kindness, his generosity of spirit, a perfect fit for a family film. And you're like, no, make him. I don't know. Just this character needs to be somewhat salacious.
He is sleepwalking through different women telling him different things, and he just believes what the last woman tells him.
Yeah.
Franco loves the Oz books. He claims he's very into all of this.
He read them all one afternoon while he was piloting a plane.
While he was lecturing at Yale University on particle physics.
Yeah.
Mila Kunis comes in. She's right off of Black Swan and Ted.
Yeah.
So she is, I guess, right,
so
and like forgetting Sarah Marshall is only a few years ago. This is peak Kunis, right? Am I wrong?
No, this is the moment where like her and Franco in this movie are very much Hollywood testing out two people and saying, you've been around for a while, but the last couple of years you really connected. Are you ready to be A-listers? And Mila's two big swings are this and Jupiter Ascending. And then arguably Friends with Benefits in the middle.
Yeah, which isn't good. I don't know. Do you have Kunis takes, Dana?
I like Forgetting Sarah Marshall.
Yes.
I think she's good in Black Swan. I mean, I guess I don't like her in this, but it's not really her fault. I never watched that 70s show, so I don't have any feelings for her one way or the other.
I watched this stupid fucking Franco doc interview thing. And she's in full makeup, in full costume in her trailer when he's interviewing her. So she's giving really interesting answers in this horrible, unfortunate getup, right? That looks even worse in like trailer lighting than it does in the finished film, if you can imagine. And she's talking so honestly and candidly about like, they offered this to me and I said, absolutely not. That is a death sentence. That is like, playing a witch is always like a whole fucking can of worms. Then you're also playing the most famous witch in the history of movies, and you can't get too close to what she did before, but if you go too far away, then people won't accept it, and there's the Wicked thing, and that like she took a meeting with Raimi because she liked him, but she was just like, there's no way I can do this. This is like just an impossible ask. And then when she met with him, they talked about the character for 4 hours, and she was like, I really found my in, and I like found the heart of her and all this sort of stuff. And it bums me out so much to watch this performance not work, because I do think it is not for lack of trying. I think she's
Agreed.
really giving it her all, and it fundamentally does not work.
It's a terribly written role. Like, all the women in this movie are, everyone is poorly written, but the women are tragic.
They're all bad. She ends up, I think, being the most embarrassed by this movie just because this movie asks the most of her. But like both halves of the character equally don't work before and after transformation.
It's interesting. After this, she's in a couple of things that don't exist, like Third Person and The Angriest Man in Brooklyn. But she does have Jupiter Ascending, which we all are very fond of.
A perfect film,
right? And I think she's great in it.
Yeah,
I think she's really charming in that movie.
But like dings her career. That was this, and
it dings her career a little bit.
Are the two big budget?
But then she had Bad Moms, which was a surprise hit.
Yes,
and then she did Bad Moms Christmas, which didn't do as well, but still made money.
Still a hit. Yeah.
And then she did The Spy Who Dumped Me, which didn't do as well, but still made money. But we're on a downward slope. If
I think that movie's fun. But yes.
Yeah, you've said it's pretty fun. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then
Susanna and Dave, they're great.
Yeah.
A couple of Susanna Fogel wrote it. And David Arison, right. 4 Good Days, which was this Sundance movie from Rodrigo Garcia, where she plays someone who's going into detox, and Glenn Close plays her mother, which got a weird Oscar nomination for a song. That thing is as much of a bummer as it sounds.
Breaking news in Yuba County.
That's the other. I don't know what that is.
I
gotta be honest.
That
with
is
you.
a
it's a Taylor movie.
Movie starring Allison Janney, Regina Hall, Mila Kunis, Awkwafina, Wanda Sykes, Ellen Barkin.
Big cast. It's made $180,000, and it got terrible reviews. She just hasn't done much, I guess is what I'm trying to say. She had kids. She seems to just sort of pick her projects.
She's in a Cheetos commercial at the moment, it seems like.
That's cool. I love Cheetos. They're delicious.
Delicious. She continues to be in every episode of Family Guy.
Which is money upon money. I mean, that is so much. So that's a good, right. So she doesn't have to worry about anything. But much like Channing Tatum of Jupiter Ascending, I could see her having a comeback. I feel like everyone's still pro Mila Kunis.
They're making that 90s show. Have you heard about that?
Yeah, I don't think that's the right choice.
No, I don't either. But I think she's coming back for that. I mean, because the show is the grandparents raising the kids, but then all the legacy cast
and then
members
everyone else can do cameos.
Like Kurtwood Smith is the lead of that show.
I see. He should be the lead of all shows.
Yeah, I just don't need it to be that 90s show. Just call it the Kurtwood Smith show.
What if it was called the Kurtwood Smith show?
That's what I want.
Her character in this movie, when she meets, the wild thing that they ask her to do is when she's Theodora.
Yeah,
she's like a simpleton. Is she
She's
like a simple
very
child?
naive. I don't know how else to put it.
She calls her sister sister, and she basically Rachel Weisz is at the top of the stairs cackling, and she's like, my good kind sister.
Rachel Weisz all in black. Basically.
Draped in spider webs.
Right.
Dana, have you seen Maleficent?
No, I haven't.
So Maleficent's the year after this. It's Stromberg. David, have you seen it?
Yeah, I've seen both Maleficents.
Right. Oh, yes. Well, the Mistress of Evil?
Mistress of Evil. Pretty wild movie.
I don't love the first Maleficent, but it is fascinating how much it sort of works to try to earn the biggest thing this movie throws away, which is that whole movie is based around the Maleficent as scorned woman thing.
Yeah.
But really forming an actual relationship of intimacy and time and depth where the betrayal is so grand, where she is cast out, and then the whole movie is arguing she is actually not bad. She was framed that way. And this movie is she talked to a guy for an hour. Then she saw him talking to someone else and got so angry she turned into a witch and threatened to eat children.
She met one man.
Right.
Yeah, she met one man.
And treated it like it was the first man she'd ever met in her life.
That's
which maybe it is. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah. I remembered this movie largely being her and Franco on the road until she goes bad. And I forgot that it's no, that chunk is 15 minutes. Then a lot of the movie is him with Michelle Williams while Rachel Weisz is whispering Mila Kunis' ear, be evil.
The other thing about Maleficent is I mean no offense to any of the actors in Oz, but Angelina Jolie as much as people like to malign her, is an insanely compelling screen presence
Yes.
who is really putting it on the line in that movie.
Yes.
That movie is stupid,
Yes.
undeniably, but she's got so much presence that you kind of just buy it. Also, it's set in an even vaguer world than Oz. It's
Yes.
just set in like fantasy land.
Right.
And that almost is good because then you don't even care at all about like what is any of this. Whereas this has a little too much like trying to sell you on like, the land of Oz. And you're like, can you explain the rules of the land of Oz? And they're like, the land of Oz. Like that's all they've got for you. They can't explain
And you're
anything
like,
else.
so I can carry over the rules I know from the old Oz movie, right? And they're like, no,
Shut up.
not legally. New
Don't
rules.
talk about that. Be
What are
quiet.
the rules? We're not going to tell you.
Along with Mila Kunis, we've got Michelle Williams. It is an interesting tidbit, Griffin. Michelle Williams had never worked on a movie with a production longer than 10 weeks before this movie.
Wow.
She
That's
truly,
pretty
this is like her first big budget movie ever. And she's like, what the fuck is all this? Like she's used to small movies where everyone feels like a family on set, I guess.
There was that crazy stat when all the money in the world reshoots happened, and Michelle Williams did them for scale, and Mark Wahlberg
and
got like
Wahlberg
an
got a ton of
additional
money, $1 million or something like that. Yeah.
right, whatever it was. It came out that Michelle Williams had never been paid over $1 million for a movie ever.
Very rude.
Rude.
We're just like, you're like, how much did they pay her for this? How much did they pay her for Venom?
Well, no, Venom is after. Venom
know.
is the one where Venom is the one where she's finally like, I got mine. But this is the one where you're like, why wasn't she paid a reasonable salary for this? She's all over this movie.
The fact that she got less than a seventh of what James Franco got.
Right. That seems weird to me. Like, but I don't know. I mean, Michelle Williams at this point, Griffin, where are we with Michelle Williams? Apart from that she rules.
Blue Valentine, maybe.
Right. She's gotten her third Oscar nomination now.
Yeah, because it's Brokeback. She gets a Blue Valentine nom, and
then
My Week with Marilyn.
Yeah.
So she's a highly established actress. In
Yes.
fact, post this, she really does nothing until Manchester by the Sea.
Yeah.
This is actually where her kind of break begins. And then Manchester by the Sea, she comes back and she's like, bam! That's her attacking the rim. She slams it down.
She takes it to the face. She's so good. Yeah.
Oh man, she's in The Fablemans. That's gonna fucking rock.
Yeah, that
Anyway,
movie's good.
she loves Sam Raimi.
Yeah.
She talks about how sweet he was with her kid, Matilda. How they would Sam and Matilda would stand behind the monitor together and hold hands. Whenever I have to do press with Sam, Matilda sighs and says, I love Sam. Like, so very pro Sam.
The thing she says in this Franco documentary thing is that A, she had never done a movie that her daughter could see before, but B, she wanted to do a movie that would be fun for her daughter to hang around. Because I think her kid was old enough. She's a single parent.
Right.
She's like, and she was like, it has so wildly exceeded those expectations. She comes to set every single day. Sam always calls her our most cherished guest on set. She like loves it. She loves everybody. So it's like, good. Sounds good. Nice.
That's nice.
Her performance in this is fine.
It's fine. It's Glinda is never the most interesting, except in Wicked, where she's kind of the best character, actually. But like,
yes.
Usually Glinda's pretty one-dimensional. She's the nice lady. Like, that's her vibe. I haven't read the books. Is she more interesting in the books? I don't know. I mean, she's very powerful.
The problem with her, and one of the many problems with this character in this movie, is because she's like, at this point, like the fifth pretty lady that Oz has met and interacted with, and his performance is exactly the same with every new pretty woman he meets. Like, I don't understand if we're being asked to buy that this is like his great love. Like the fact that he ends up with her, I'm like, all right, I guess. She was the last one on this game of musical chairs.
She's last one.
Nice. Yeah.
Well, and you do this weird thing. I mean, he does the Wizard of Oz trick, right? Of double casting people.
Yes.
In the opening Kansas chunk.
So you got Braff and you got Joey King. Is that it?
And Michelle
Williams,
right? Which she doesn't have makeup. Like, unlike the Wizard of Oz, a trio of Lair and Haley and Bolger, where when they show up in Oz, they look entirely different. And in this movie, Braff and Joey King are CGI. You just have Michelle Williams playing two identical women, one of whom is Dorothy's mom, and the other of whom is Glinda the Good Witch.
Yeah.
And it's just sort of like, well, of course he's going to fuck the woman who looks like the woman he's fucked before. But also he has no chemistry with her.
He doesn't have a ton of chemistry with her. Except
And
that
he
she's
doesn't
nice.
seem that interested. Clearly, he's not hung up on Mrs. Gale because he was trying to have sex with Abigail Spencer mere moments before.
Abigail Spencer's kind of fun in this.
Yeah.
I love Abigail Spencer. I
She
am always
rules.
here for Abigail Spencer. There's
Yeah.
not enough Abigail Spencer in my life.
Agreed.
Fucking, what's it called? What was that show that she was on that was
Suits?
Rectify? No, not Suits. I never watched Suits. Suits
She
is
was
one of those
at-
things.
She was at Meghan Markle's wedding.
Hey,
I mean, it's pretty cool.
She got that invite. That's pretty cool.
Abigail Spencer, love Abigail. She was on the time travel show, right? Timeless, right? That
she was on
another one.
Timeless, and she played Sally's teacher on Mad Men. She had that really good arc.
Oh, yeah.
So good. Love her. Love her. She's the coolest.
I think this opening chunk is kind of nice. It just fits Raimi tonally.
And it's
And-
the one time he's being visually interesting. Like,
Yes.
I love the Academy ratio and the black and white and all that and how it's going to switch. That's cool. That's a
And
good
this
idea.
Thing has good energy. Like Raimi being at a fucking circus is fun. It looks nice. It helps that he has real sets that he can frame around.
Him then cutting the wires with the machete is fun.
Yes.
And then
That's really good.
I think my two favorite shot sequences in this movie is one, the opening credits, because it's a good opening credit.
Really good.
And
Yep.
then when it's still Academy ratio and he's in the hot air balloon and things are sort of flying at him and he's dodging wood, that's a fun Raimi cartoonish shot.
It is just wild though the second he pokes his head out of the basket and the frame widens out and it goes to color and you're like, very cool. Raimi has found a way to
Right.
with
Do the
CGI and
Oz
3D and modern do the Oz transition thing. And then from that moment on, all the air out of the balloon.
It feels like it's his one really clever pitch. And then I guess he just maybe was hamstrung by the fact that he couldn't do Oz how he wanted to do Oz. I don't know.
But I also think Burton has talked about this too, and how difficult it is, and how few directors have the right sort of mindset to be able to shoot movies like this that are 90% green screen, where it's just composing shots is so fucking difficult when there is nothing to anchor your eye to frame around. And, it's hard to know how to give the actors what they need to react off of and all that sort of shit. And they talked about Joe Roth, and this was we're building more sets than we did on Alice because you need more grounding. But it's still, you can feel the ground beneath them is real, but then everything behind them is painted. The room is real up until this point, and then from then on, it's whatever. I do think the whole thing has that weird hermetic feel to it. It has that Sky Captain in the World of Tomorrow feel, where you're just this movie feels like it was made in one room, as you're telling me to believe in these expansive landscapes.
Even there, I fully agree with you. I think visually it sort of has that flubbery feel, but there's also that weird sense with the script where they're just script problems, the rules aren't consistent. They're asking us to believe that all the people in Oz are impressed by this guy
Right.
bringing out glue and bringing out a projector when actual magic exists. How can you be wowed by glue
I know.
in a world that magic exists?
That is an incredible point. It's
the whole thing.
It's the whole
People shoot
problem.
lightning out of their hands
Right.
in this movie, and he does a smoke show, and they're like, ah, what? We don't know what to do.
They literally flew in on bubbles.
right.
Magic bubbles. He is levitated by witches, and they're like, but this guy knows what,
It is funny how, with less rules and less explanation, Army of Darkness totally pulls this off, though, even though that is a world in which supernatural things do exist. There are wizards of actual magic and dancing skeletons, and yet Ash is able to stand up with, a boomstick and have people go, holy shit, who the fuck is this guy?
Yes. I mean, Army of Darkness, you saying that does it is a good point. Raimi, as meticulous as he can be visually and all that, his movies rarely are too invested in world building. Like the Evil Dead movies, it's all very vague and loose, and it kind of, whatever fits, whatever we want to do, right? Like,
and the Spider-Man movies are so much less lore heavy than any modern superhero film.
Incredibly light on all of that stuff.
This movie seems so all it has is lore. By the time he gets to Oz, that's all we're hanging our hats on.
But he doesn't care about any of that stuff.
He doesn't.
He cares about the movie. Like, he loves the magic of the Wizard of Oz, but I don't think he cares about like the various wicked witches of Oz and all that stuff, No,
you look at the 3 Evil Dead films, and the lore there is whatever it needs to be to make that scene work. How did the Deadites function? Whatever will make for the most interesting sequence now.
Same with Drag Me to Hell, where people are like, oh, what's this inspired by? He's like, I don't know, nothing. Like, whatever.
Scary shit.
Yeah, imagine if an old lady gummed your chin. That's fucked up.
The chin gumming.
Yes.
It is kind of a perfect metaphor, though, for like the gender relations in this movie that like James Franco's being paid $7 million to sleepwalk through when it's like these witches are doing actual magic and it's like a guy doing a finger trick that everyone's like, yay, he shall be our king.
Right, you're like, Michelle Williams is getting $250,000 for this or whatever.
She's
like
shooting lightning out of her hands and flying.
But this is the other problem is, I mean, even by the time this movie comes out, Raimi is like, I'm not making a sequel under any circumstances. I know Disney wants to. Good luck to whoever takes it on next. They were so in on the idea that this was going to launch their own proprietary Oz series. There was going to be a Disney trademarked Oz that they could run with, that they could build shit in the theme parks and make more movies and whatever. This is such a weird starting point if that's what you want to do. Exactly.
What is the sequel? I mean, I guess it's just witch battles or whatever, but like you can't do Dorothy.
No.
Or you can't do Dorothy how you think or whatever. Like you'd have to do all this nonsense.
And you've also cut yourself off from the books, like by the fact that it's not Ozma who's the king's daughter.
Right.
Like you can't even do the book stuff anymore.
You can't go back to the well anymore. He's not interesting as a main character. Even if it was Downey Jr., even if you had someone who was in the pocket giving a crackerjack performance, we still know the end landing place for this character is kind of pathetic old man who puts on a fucking hologram show.
Who's a good gift giver. Who's really good at giving gifts.
That's true.
His thing. That's Oz's thing.
Because a lot of people, when they give gifts, it feels like they want you to see that they're doing the nice thing. But he actually...
Right. Or they just went to your Amazon wish list or whatever. Right. But no, Oz thinks about it.
His is like thoughtful. Like you just started working together as a coworker, but yet he's paying attention to you.
And also, like, how did you know? Like, this is exactly what I needed.
I do need courage. Yeah,
I've been singing about this for days.
Some other characters in this movie. Yeah, obviously Rachel Weisz. Basically, that's like calling Daniel Bruhl to play a Nazi, where it's like, hey, Rachel, can you play like a sort of sexy witch lady who's very imperious? And Rachel Weisz is like, yeah, she's like,
oh, you want a number 4? Absolutely.
Yeah, do you want or like she's done this rodeo so many times.
In heels,
unlike Michelle
or
Williams,
without.
she knows all this stuff, right? Yeah. You've got Zach Braff. Where are we with Zach Braff in 2013?
A weird place. I mean, this is like...
Because Scrubs ends in 2010, and of course he's sort of wound down.
He doesn't even show up and barely shows up in season 9 after everything Scrubs did for him.
But then, when does Wish I Was Here or whatever come out?
How do you not remember that the important release date of Wish I Was Here, the most bizarrely grammatically titled.
The worst.
Wish I Was Here comes out the next year, 2014. Okay. So he must have done it right after this, essentially.
So that's the weird thing with his
movie.
career, right? Is that like Scrubs is big, he stays on it for too long, but also stays on doing less, which does not give him any goodwill. He takes so long to make the Garden State follow-up, and then he's never really tested as a movie star successfully. There's like weird shit like The Last Kiss and The X.
The X. Oh, I saw that in the theater.
I saw The Last Kiss in the theater. It might be one of the worst films I ever saw in a theater. That movie sucks.
Yeah.
A Tony Goldwyn picture.
Yeah. But this is that zone where people are like, so what is he? Is he not a leading man? Is he an auteur? Is he making his own indie films? He's not a comedy guy. Like where does he fit in? Yeah. It's sort of bizarre that he does this, but then also like, he's not just doing voiceover. He was on set every fucking day puppeteering this thing.
Yeah, so I can read you the quote, which is, sometimes he's doing the puppet, which he would operate and act out.
Not even mocap, the puppet.
The puppet. But sometimes he would wear a blue screen onesie and sit on his butt because they realized that he's 36 inches tall if he sits on his butt and hunches over. So he would be sort of monkey sized. And the third thing was called puppet cam. If he was like flying or whatever, they would put a monitor on the end of the stick and I'd be in the video booth and they would do it via the monitor, which sounds crazy. But that's what they did.
Yeah. I mean, I saw footage of him in the VO booth where they were just filming his facial reactions as well. I don't know. I mean, he worked really fucking hard on this. There's so many interviews with Franco where he's like really being thoughtful about this and like the process of it, whatever, and talking about how he's just constantly looking for the funniest jokes. Raimi was trying to keep it tied to story and whatever. He's good in the.
Wait, you mean interviews with Braff rather, not Franco?
Interviews with Braff in the Franco doc, where he's
yeah.
talking about his relationship with Raimi, and that was the main reason he did the movie, is he wanted to work with Raimi, despite his face barely being on screen. I couldn't find it, but I remember an article from when this movie came out, because the other weird thing about this movie, not just what we're talking about of like this being the changeover period, the last film of this run of Disney trying to make their own boy branded IP before they just gobbled everything else up. But there's like the quick succession of what's his name? It was Dick Cook was the head of Disney Films, and then he got fired and they replaced him with the guy whose name wasn't Rick Ross, but was something like that. And Dick Cook developed this, then that guy greenlit this movie, and then when it came out, Alan Horn was the head of Disney. There were like three different heads within a 4-year period who all touched this movie at different points. And I remember this article about how Alan Horn was like landing at Disney and immediately getting his feet dirty or whatever, saying that he was very hands-on with trying to save this movie and like demanded reshoots like 6 months before it came out to amplify the role of Finley the monkey, because Finley was like the only thing that was working.
Does Finley work? He works okay.
He works better than anything else.
Yeah, he works better than anything else.
Unlike China Girl. I mean, some people might argue China Girl works, right?
He sort of has a Jar Jar Binks arc, right? It's like he saves his life and he's like, I'm not going to do a voice, but like, Misa, your humble servant.
The smart thinking. The funniest line in this movie, I think the only joke that actually works for me, is when Franco offers him a banana. He's like, oh, that's what, just because I'm a monkey, you think I like bananas? What, could you be any more simplistic? And he's like, so you don't want a banana? He's like, of course I want a banana. I'm a monkey.
That's pretty funny.
Classic.
That's
funny.
I don't know. Ben, did you like the monkey? Where do you come down on the monkey?
Talk about Finley, Ben.
The monkey. I didn't like the monkey.
Wow, the monkey's out.
Wow.
Yep.
No, it's not that the monkey's out. I mean, Braff is fine. I'm tired of that kind of character in kids' movies or something. I don't know. It just felt generic. I didn't really lock in on the monkey at all, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, it is required, Griffin. You would agree. Any children's film, even one barely attempting to appeal to children like this one, needs a funny sidekick who's maybe an animal, right?
I would agree. I'd argue, in fact, it's probably the most important element of any live action Disney hybrid movie.
It can make or break. The performance of the animated sidekick really does make or break the Disney fairy tale movie.
Yeah, and I would imagine if you're someone who's like working in that capacity on a movie like this, you're probably racked with anxiety on a daily basis, because you're like, if I'm annoying in this role, parents are going to have to hear this 8,000 times. Like, people aren't going to dislike this. It's going to drive them insane.
Right. It'll be the name of Lucifer.
Right. You're like, how do I actually make this funny, but also appealing to children? I don't know. I can't even imagine being in that position.
You know what it is, Griff? Because, I hear you. And I think what it comes down to is I was distracted by Porcelain Girl. That's really what was going on for me.
Ben, China Girl corner. Let's talk about China Girl.
Please. So China Girl, they meet her in the middle of the movie. She's in some sort of ruined land. Yes.
Some sort of ruined land?
Yeah.
A tiny porcelain town.
No, she's in like the most depressing looking house, though.
Why did Evanora break? Why would she break her porcelain town when
she's mean?
But she's pretending not to be evil at this point.
Yeah, she's doing a lot of false
logic
flag
of that,
stuff.
none of it
I don't know. yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
This movie was like trying so hard to sort of do the misdirect of like Evanora's going to be the Wicked Witch and not Mila Kunis. And then it gives it up like 30 minutes in. And she turns evil so much earlier than I remembered. Then you still have like 40 fucking minutes of the movie left.
Yeah, she turns evil and then just kind of sits there for a while. She doesn't like kind of do anything about it. Yeah.
I will say, have you seen the A Chorus Line documentary?
No.
I have not. No.
A pretty good documentary that's like, talking about bringing the musical to Broadway. And the one thing that stuck out to me is they talked about how in early drafts of the musical, it was like every character gets their song and that they would just sort of go down the line. And they said like 4 people in, audience people were like checking their playbill because you could see what's happening. And no matter how good the songs are, you just get bored by the structure. And so when he meets China Girl and like helps her, that's when I was like, because I could see that the 10 other beats right down the line of like, all right, they assemble the team, they go, it's Glinda. Like that was the point where I was just like, this is such a slog.
It is a slog. I agree with that. China Girl did nothing for me. I'm sorry, Ben.
Yeah, Ben, sorry. We keep on interrupting your China Girl corner. I like China Girl. I defend you on this. I just want you to explain a little bit.
I mean, it's just there's something so striking to me about her being broken in this home by herself. It made me so sad immediately. And I wasn't paying attention to the movie. I mean, I was looking at my phone for most of this movie. I have to be honest. It was hard to pay attention.
Some boring ass shit. Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah, truly. But I just that and then her, obviously, glue isn't magic. It's lame. It's just simple things we have, everyday objects.
Why couldn't Glinda just use magic?
Do you know what was the thing I kept on that kept happening when I was watching this movie? I would think to myself, this isn't as bad as I remembered it being. It's fine. And then I would stop and realize I had not looked up at the screen in 3 minutes.
Oh, this is actually pretty good. Oh, sorry. I mean the Disney emoji blitz that I'm playing.
That truly happened. I would be like, this is like okay. And then I'd go, you're reading the dossier. You haven't looked at the screen in a scene.
Ian was so mad when I looked at my tweets like a third of the way through. He's like, you can't. No, you put this on the TV. Put your phone away.
Yeah, fucking Franco was looking at his tweets mid-take. He's fucking tweeting out things on camera. I thought that was a weird performance choice that there's several scenes where they cut to Franco and he holds up a finger, he just goes, Sam, just give me 1 second here. Give me 1 second. I'm just finishing something.
Hey, at least Porcelain Girl, or I keep saying Porcelain.
China Girl.
At least it's something new.
I agree.
Yeah.
As far as a character. And I liked all the little cracks. Like you could,
I think she is a well-realized character visually.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's just she's a little one note, she's a little fragile, right? Like she's not a lot of fun.
I don't mean this as a joke. That's so alpha of you to say, David. She's not fun because she's too fragile.
No, she's annoying. When she's like, well, someone tuck me in, I'm like, you're annoying.
She's a little girl. Come on. Sometimes they want to be tucked. Kids like to be tucked.
That's true.
I truly think also Franco has better chemistry with China Girl than anyone else in the movie.
Sure, he's actually a little sweet with her. That's true. He has more chemistry with the virtual characters in general, I would say, weirdly. Like he's got a little bit of banter with the monkey. I guess. Yeah. This is true grabbing at straws, though.
Yes. No, absolutely. Yeah. David?
Yes.
My grandfather worked in life insurance.
Okay, sure. A noble field.
A noble field, but I think it was very much a thing where his family didn't have life insurance. And he was like, I'm going to do my own research to figure out how to get them a good policy. And then he ended up working in that field. And here's the thing. He confessed to me very late in life that he never enjoyed it, and he wished he had worked in the movie business.
Fair enough. Well, yeah, because he was trying to do the work, too much work for one person to do, I feel like.
This is the point. For him to figure out how to get a good insurance policy, he essentially had to become an insurance salesman, and it became a lifetime of work.
Yeah, and look, with a place like Policy Genius, it's a one-stop shop to find insurance you need at the right price. It does all that work for you, all that really hard, complicated work.
If only my long-dead grandfather had Policy Genius.
Yeah, look, head to policygenius.com to get started, and in minutes you can compare personalized quotes from top companies to find your lowest price. You could save 50% or more on life insurance by comparing quotes with Policy Genius.
That's a lot. 50% is half. More than that is more than half.
And the license, it's not just an algorithm. They've got licensed agents on hand through the entire process to help you understand your options and make decisions with confidence. The Policy Genius team works for you, not the insurance companies.
My grandfather worked at the mailroom in Paramount, like when they had the New York offices, what I think is now the Hard Rock Cafe. And he was like, I'm going to work my way out from the mailroom. And then he became a life insurance salesman.
Well, I mean, look, I don't know what he would think about these fast facts, but Policy Genius doesn't add on extra fees, doesn't sell your info to third parties, has thousands of 5-star reviews across Google and Trustpilot, and options that offer coverage in as little as a week and avoid unnecessary medical exams. Since 2014, they've helped over 30 million people shop for insurance and placed over $150 billion in coverage.
That's a good track record. That's enough years. That's enough money saved. I think you can put some confidence in Policy Genius.
Yes. Well, head to policygenius.com to get your free life insurance quotes and see how much you could save. That's it.
Great.
Love it.
R.I.P. Leonard Newman.
You guys want some more context? They shot it in a giant Raleigh, Michigan studios, a giant complex in Pontiac, Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
Huge tax benefits. So that's great. Obviously, Sam Raimi is from Michigan. So
yeah, I like that.
That's nice.
Yeah.
Can we talk about the comedy? Like, what do we think of the style of comedy of this movie?
Bad?
Yeah, bad.
What?
Oh
what
God.
comedy? Remind me.
I don't know.
Non-comedy.
I don't know what.
The Danny Elfman score is really Edward Scissorhands. Like, it felt
Very.
like he went back to like his trash and was like, "What did I not use for Edward Scissorhands?"
I know, and this is like their big reunion after like 10 years of fighting or whatever. 5
Not
years.
10,
Yeah,
right. 5 years.
5,
Yeah. They figured it.
almost 10, 9 years. I don't know. It's in between
No,
Spider-Man 2 and
3
this.
is. Oh, yeah.
No, but
I
he
guess
never even
because,
works on
right,
Spider-Man
He never
3.
really worked on it. So yeah, 10 years.
Yeah.
I didn't, as I was listening to it, I was like, "Oh, this score's not bad." And like the music box sort of has a motif that repeats. And then in my head afterward, I was just imagining the Edward Scissorhands score. When I played it back, when I was like, "Oh, that's not bad," and I would remember it, I realized I was remembering.
Elfman, he's like Horner. He's like a lot of these guys where it's like, a phoned-in Elfman score is pretty likable. And then you realize like, oh, he's just doing what he usually does. Right. And then when he does something different, you're like, oh, that's exciting. But yeah, he'll often just do Elfman.
Can I read an amazing quote from the IMDb trivia?
You can. JJ will be mad at you, but you
No,
can.
I know. Look, when I quote a Wikipedia thing or a trivia thing in a post-JJ professional researcher error, I want to make it clear that what I'm saying is unsubstantiated, and I just am reading it for what it is. But this one I think is pretty hard to argue with, David, okay? The taxpayers of the state of Michigan, population 9.6 million, reimbursed Disney $40 million of this film's budget, but have no equity in the film. Now, you can't argue with that.
Now, what if they did? What
Now,
if
what if they
everyone
did?
from Michigan got like a check for 80 cents every week or whatever?
That is so...
Because-
I have never seen someone write something like that in an IMDb trivia page. There obviously most cities and states...
An angry Michiganer is writing
One
that.
angry Michiganer. One guy running for city council.
That is absolutely someone in Michigan went to see this movie. Went, I fucking paid for this bullshit twice.
You did.
I paid for a ticket and I fucking paid for Franco's like catering or whatever.
What was I going to say about Michigan? But Sam Raimi got to go home. Aren't you happy about that? Listen to him.
I like that. I think that's sweet.
Listen to him. I had to move to Los Angeles for the film business, but I love the trees in the fall, the rain, the gray skies, and I like the cold. You know, like he misses the seasons. He misses the reality of Michigan.
God, Olivia Wilde, Amy Adams, Blake Lively, Kate Beckinsale, Keira Knightley, Rebecca Hall, and Kristen Stewart were considered for the roles of the witches. I mean, once again, insubstantiated, but like unsubstantiated.
A bunch of ladies.
But I'm sure that fucking wish list was just the 20 most prominent actresses in Hollywood at that moment for those 3 roles.
Oh boy, this film obviously is 70% CGI, so mostly acting in front of blue screens. But as you noted, Griff, Stromberg did build some sets. You know, there is a little bit of tactility. They're at least standing on something, like you said. Like, you know, there's kind of a little tiny bit of that.
Is Tinkers a race or an occupation? Is that like an ethnic group of people?
They're an
occupation. Are they Teamsters?
Right, because Bill Cobb is supposed to be the guy who builds the Tin Man.
Yes, Bill Cobb is the tinker, and he is not small.
Well, he's not the tinker. Person. He's a tinker.
I believe he's called Master Tinker. He's the leader of the Tinkers, and he'll eventually build the Tin Woodsman. But all of the people playing Munchkins or whatever are little people. Like they just cast little people, right? You know, they didn't do any CGI stuff.
But I'm saying we come to Glinda's. I mean, they do like CGI flips a bunch. Yeah,
well, they
do a lot of flips.
Sure,
CGI flips, man.
Yeah, Zach Cherry would love this movie.
But I'm saying when we get to Glinda's like kingdom, and she's like, there's farmers that are and then there's tinkers who all kind of look alike, and there's munchkins and quadlings, tinkers and munchkins. Are the tinkers like an ethnic race of people?
I don't think anyone should say the word ethnic about anything in Oz. It feels like Pandora's box.
I'm so sorry.
I just don't want to dig into what any of this is supposed to represent. Yeah. I don't want to dig into what any of these people are supposed to look like. I just think it's very tricky territory. I don't want to know. But yes, look.
No, I think you're right.
I think yeah, they are a group in the world of Oz that seem to be organized in some way. The Tinkers are like a people of sorts, I guess, right?
I'm just like the setup of Oz in this movie is wildly unclear and makes me just like feel disoriented.
I don't know what you're talking about. It's very clear.
Okay, wait. They're like what's Fraggle Rock? What's the
all right,
the
Ben,
workers?
No.
The Doozers.
The
Doozers.
The Doozers.
Yeah.
No, Griff, and correct me if I'm wrong, Griff. This is all very simple.
Sure.
Oz is a magical land. Emerald City is its capital.
Mm-hmm.
The king recently died under mysterious circumstances. It was definitely the fault of the really nice lady who wears pink and white and floats around on bubbles, and not the fault of the lady in the black dress who shoots lightning out of her hands. Okay?
Yeah, it was his nice daughter who clearly everyone loves.
And Asgard is a people, not a place. Yes.
Right. Various kinds of things live in Oz. Porcelain people, munchkins, tinkers, blah, blah, blah.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes the munchkins will stand on each other's shoulders and they'll be really tall. That's fun. Anyway, if the king shows up, he gets to be king of Oz. He gets to sit on a throne and he gets to have a giant pool of money that is gold.
David.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Gold scepter. You're forgetting the most important part.
Of course. Very, very, very important. Anyway, and there are various witches who are kind of just hanging out waiting for something to do.
Yeah.
Very, very, very clear world. Lots to understand. All makes sense. Oh, and there are flying monkeys.
And then there's a separate kingdom under a bubble that only if you're pure of heart can you get in.
Travel through bubbles. Yeah, you want to know a fun fact? Here's another fun fact. You know the scene where James Franco's rolling around the gold?
Yeah.
That was his salary for this movie.
Oh, boy. Yeah, he actually asks for his salary in Scrooge McDuck banks that he gets to swim around in.
Well, but look, he thought it was an interesting statement on capitalism. I mean, he was doing that.
Right.
Not because he's a money grubber, but because...
he made a movie called $sign that was on Vimeo or whatever.
It played upside down in an art gallery or some shit. I rewatched the original film last night because I hadn't watched it in a while.
The Wizard of Oz?
The Wizard of Oz.
The Victor Fleming joint?
Yeah.
Sure.
Have you folks ever seen it?
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah.
You know what else is fun about that movie is it's a musical.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's got songs. This has like one song.
Which we talk about fucking Spider-Man 3 has 3 musical numbers in it.
Right.
And like I was saying in that episode that people were commenting at the time, like it feels like he wants to make a musical. And you wish he could go full bore. The other part of the development of this movie, I mean, so when what's his name, the whole 9 yard guy, Kapner, when he pitches this,
Kapner.
When he pitches this to Disney, they developed this under the title Brick. And he was like, I was only allowed to tell 2 people in my life that I was working on this because Disney was so terrified that other people would like try to get an Oz movie made before them. They were so terrified of the Wicked movie happening before them. They were terrified of other studios wanting to make their own rival, Snow White and the Huntsman style Oz movies.
One could say they were cowardly.
They were cowardly. But it is bizarre to not lean into the musical aspect of this, especially if your goal is to beat Wicked to the punch. Why not put fucking songs in this? That having been said, Alice in Wonderland has 0 songs. Maleficent has 0 songs. Jungle Book like tiptoes around 2 songs.
Kind of does songs, right? But
And they never learned their lesson. Like Mulan doesn't have any song. That live action Mulan had no songs.
But it truly took until Beauty and the Beast where they were like, fine, you want the musical numbers. And it was like, Disney, why are you fucking tentative about putting your songs?
Yeah, you've got a bit of a proven formula, actually, right? If you lean into it. It actually, people quite like it. Yeah.
Right.
I'm confused though, because I thought you were supposed to immediately fast forward when the song started.
Ben.
Did you guys not immediately have to get past it?
Is that really what you did, Ben? That makes so much sense.
Yeah,
as a kid, you'd be like, boring.
Oh, wait, no. I'm talking about the fucking movie that I watched for this goddamn episode. Yeah, whatever the movie. One fucking song that's in the movie. I'm not talking about the original.
Barely even a song.
Jesus. You all looked at me like I was a monster.
Right. I thought you were saying like you fast forwarded through like Somewhere Over the Rainbow.
Right.
No. Jesus.
Yeah,
no, I cry at dogs.
No. This movie, you should hit play, right? Hit play on the movie, and then immediately hit the fast forward button. All the way up.
All the way.
And then when the movie ends, that's it. That's how you should absorb this movie.
Well, the end credits are good. You can go normal speed for the
slow
end
down,
credits.
slow down.
Bring it back to that.
Yeah, okay. So you watched The Wizard of Oz, the 1939 film directed by Victor Fleming starring Judy Garland. Did you like it? How many stars?
5 stars, perfect film. It is one of those things.
Pretty good.
It's just kind of inexplicable how well that thing works. But it does sort of just prove the fool's errand of ever trying to make another Oz movie unless you're doing something so fucking radically different. I mean, like, I love a Return to Oz. I'm one of the world's greatest defenders of Sidney Lumet's The Wiz. But, both of those movies got dinged for being weirdly dark and sad. And then anytime, because there was like that weird CGI Oz movie that came out a couple years ago that was called like Dorothy's Oz or something. I believe Warner Brothers is now making an animated film called Toto that's trying to use the iconography that they legally own to retell Oz from their viewpoint. It just feels like one of those things where like, I mean, Wizard of Oz notoriously was like not only a flop when it came out, but it was like a difficult production, went through multiple directors, all this sort of shit. It's like that movie is just some weird miracle. Every design element they landed on ended up being perfect. Every performance is perfect.
Judy Garland was on 4 hours of sleep and weight loss drugs the whole time.
On methamphetamines, essentially. Yes.
Right. It's like a fucking sweatshop like performance. Like for all the weird drama and darkness around that movie, it's just everything about that movie just crystallizes correctly, and you're never going to get better than that.
Yeah, The Wizard of Oz is a tough act to follow, and Sam Raimi's initial instinct to stay away from this movie was the right one.
Good.
But then, of course, he read the script, which I assume is he was presented with a bag of money. But maybe I'm wrong. Like, maybe he talked himself into there's a way to pay homage to The Wizard of Oz through this. Maybe. I don't know.
I think that was half of it. And that thing about the connection to the magician and the showman and the charlatan thing.
But you know what the other thing is? You know what the other thing is, Griffin? And this isn't true of all directors, but it's true of a lot. And it's true of a Sam Raimi type, I think. Is like, what if I could make a top shelf Disney movie? Like some people are kind of like, oh, the magic of like a perfect family Disney movie. Like that's special. Maybe you want that like on your resume. I don't know.
Also, look, that Alan Horn piece that I cannot find where he took credit for adding more Finley to the film also made it sound like they reshot 40% of the movie like 6 months before it came out. And when all the stories were coming out about Doctor Strange and how many reshoots there were, I was worried that this was exactly what it was going to feel like, where it was just like, this whole movie has been smoothed over and sanded off and is just sort of like generic goop. And, Doctor Strange, I think, is half a movie that feels like that and half a full-bore, completely recognizable Sam Raimi shit. And I wonder if he just got lost in the machinery of making a movie like this, if he couldn't recover from the copyright shit, if the reshoots just totally erased whatever personality was there. But I just got so fucking bummed out watching that interview with Franco, where I saw it for the first time. I fucking saw on an emotional level why he did this movie. And then it is so depressing to watch this film and recognize the thing there and have it not connect at all.
Here's what I think happened, Griffin. You want to listen up?
Yep.
Maybe get some behind the scenes scoop from me. I think he was given an apple by an evil witch and he ate it and it turned him into a bad director for 6 months.
Tears are acid. They burn her cheeks.
She melts with water.
Well, yeah, that's a reference to her being vulnerable to water, of course. Griffin. That's because, they can't be out in front of that, but yeah,
her so is this
any water?
This is the first time she's ever cried in her life, and she does it twice in one day
over the least charismatic man in the world, showing her a tiny bit of affection for 11 minutes.
Griffin, she was clearly born yesterday, so I don't know what you mean. Like, it does not appear like this person has been alive for a very long time.
You folks have seen that interview where she's doing a press junket and they send like a college student to interview her from some British station.
Yes. Good. JJ had this in it was sort of a viral thing.
It was
incredible. I haven't. What is it?
Yeah. You might have seen it, Dana. You might remember it if you saw it.
He's like asking her questions about like going out drinking with his friends and shit. He's just like so sort of like innocent and just like sort of like, my friends all think you're really hot. You did have a fun time if you came out and drink. But he's like not being like sleazy with her.
Yeah.
And she's like, this is incredible. This is the best interview I've ever done. You're the only person in days who's talked to me like a real person. And then he's like,
great.
He's like, I'm sorry, I'm like an intern. They sent me. I'm fucking this up. I should ask you questions about the movie. And she's like, I don't want to talk about this movie ever again. And then she does this thing where she's like, here's every answer I have about the movie. And she speed runs it for like 30 seconds. And she's like, I play a woman who's very innocent and she gets her emotions abused by this man. What I found interesting about the character was the duality. I did try to find the humanity in the root of what she was, this and that. Anyway, go on. Where do you and your friends go out drinking? And she just has this.
Yeah, he's like going to a wedding, maybe, and he like ropes her into that. Yeah.
Yes. But it's like the answer where she just says like, here are all the bullet points of what I would say in a fucking junket interview about this character in the arc. This whole movie just feels like that.
I mean, that's charming. I'm going to go watch that interview.
I think Mila Kunis is cool. I think she's cool. She's a Ukrainian Jew, she's from Ukraine.
She's been doing a lot of really fucking good work.
Yeah.
Like raising money during the crisis. Yeah.
She's married to Ashton Kutcher, which is, kind of weird. But I remember, I think she was on the Conan podcast. Was that right?
Yes.
And then Ashton Kutcher like showed up in the middle.
Oh.
And it was one of those things where you're like, you have the cynical thought of like, is this like something they staged or whatever? But like, it truly just seems like he's coming home from work or whatever. And they're all chatting.
That's
cool. Very nice.
Yeah.
That's sweet.
Nice.
She seems like a nice lady.
I've always liked her. And she does just have a very unique energy. Like it was that moment in the early 2010s when everyone thought suddenly, oh, is she a movie star? It was kind of exciting because she is unique. She doesn't look like anybody. She doesn't sound like anybody.
Yeah, she's a little unique. It's true. Yeah,
she's got a very interesting vibe, and there was like an interesting range of like, she's very different in Black Swan than she is in this, than she is in that. And I don't know. I hope she comes back. Yeah, she's funny.
I remember when Forgetting Sarah Marshall came together, like I was so excited for it because it was like, one, the Apatow thing was still like fairly new. And two, it was like, I was like, oh my God, the guy I like most from Freaks and Geeks is making a movie. And then like Veronica Mars is in it.
Right.
Oh, and Russell Brand, that's interesting. And then I was like, oh, and Mila Kunis, who cares? I had no interest in, like, I was like, oh, sure, from that 70s show. And then she's like one of the best things about the movie. Like that was where I was like, oh, she's so charismatic.
Yeah. I don't know. Kunisance,
but
please.
This is where Kunisance, please. But this is when we have nothing good to say about this movie, where we're just like, Well, Mila Kunis seems nice.
Yeah.
we're out. We're like, there's nothing to say about Oz the Great and Powerful. They have a big battle at the end. It makes no sense. He uses magic.
It makes no sense.
He uses stage magic to win a battle.
He faked his own death in a way that you're like, you didn't, for whose benefit?
And then he gets to be the king, but in a good way, sort of, I guess. He's not doing it for profit.
He gives everyone a gift, and then he's like, and your gift, Glinda, is behind this curtain. And it was him.
It's him going.
There's a Katie Waldman review or piece about this movie when it came out from Slate. And the headline just really kind of sums it up, where it's, in Raimi's odds, male frauds are heroes and female frauds are pathetic.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Not to underline too hard, but like, it just, that is the thing where just this movie keeps on trying to tell us, like, you should like this guy.
Yeah. And it did not work. I mean, from the beginning, when I'm like, he literally is like, there's a sock on the door, because he's trying to like hook up with this girl he's tricking. And like, then he's kind of mean to Michelle Williams, who's like, I want to be with you. And he's like, shove it. But he doesn't do it in a funny or charming way.
You know what this performance feels like? You know when you watch like documentaries about things like Fire Festival and everyone who's talking is like, Billy McFarlane was the most charismatic person I've ever met.
Right. You don't understand it. That guy got you in a room and you were just throwing money at him. Yeah.
Right. And then you watch the interview and you're like, I see through this guy. This guy's got nothing going on. What am I missing here? It feels like everyone in the movie is telling you, like, God, when Oscar Diggs looks in your eyes, you'll follow him anywhere. You believe he is the great and powerful Oz. And I'm watching, I'm like, who the fuck is this guy?
It makes everyone seem really stupid. That's the problem.
And it makes the women seem pathetic, because why are you even devoting any energy to this idiot?
Except for Vice, who sees through him right away, pretty much. And I mean, look, what you're saying, what everyone is saying, and then let's just play the box office game, is like, obviously, if I'm Sam Raimi and I'm looking at the script, I am like, yeah, this guy needs to turn from villain to hero. He needs to turn from cad to heartwarming, dad, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, that makes sense.
And
so the script, so the script has that arc in it. It's just that his performance doesn't change much, and it doesn't. So at the end, where everyone's like, "Oh, you're so great," I'm like, "He is." Like, are we sure?
The movie happens on a green screen conveyor belt behind him while he stays exactly in the same place.
He stays pretty much, kind of the same. Yeah, he's not caddish enough, and then he's not charming enough. Griffin.
Oh, you know what we should talk about before we end? That we get the backstory on the broomstick.
Oh boy.
He teaches her that witches are supposed to have broomsticks, but she does come up with pointy hat on her own. She independently comes up with pointy hat.
Well, she goes from floppy hat to pointy hat.
Yeah.
It's a big character arc.
It's a huge important thing that we need to learn.
Yeah.
It is funny that at the end of the movie, she's like, I'm wicked. And he's like, well, if you ever wanted to not be wicked, we would forgive you. And she's like, no, and then leaves. Like, why even do that?
If you ever want to not be wicked, you know where I am, here in the Kingdom of Oz.
Right. She's like, no, goodbye. And you're like, right. She can't turn good again. She's the wicked witch. Like, this is what you set up.
Look, on the point of the box office game, a transition here. I remember when one of the later trailers came out. And it included, they never showed the witch design in the trailers, right?
Well, they tried really hard to hide that she was becoming the Wicked Witch.
Right.
Yes. She's on the poster in the floppy hat. They're trying to keep you guessing.
And one trailer had the end sort of money shot was the green hand with the nails scraping across.
The claws. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then the other trailer, the money shot at the end was when the fire starts to swirl and you see the silhouette of the witch design. And I remember on, Slash Film or whatever, when that trailer posted, someone in the comments saying that final shot just got them $100 million opening.
Mm.
And it almost did.
It almost did. This film opened March 8th, 2013. So pretty much the Alice in Wonderland spot to $79 million. Pretty good.
Pretty good.
Pretty good.
For a movie that no one remembers or cares about.
And for a bad movie. For a movie that is boring and long.
But it truly was one of those things where I feel like it wasn't tracking incredibly well, and then they put the witch teases in the trailer, and then it went up.
I buy that.
Yes. It made $234 million domestically.
One of the 10 highest grossing films of that year.
Yep. It made $490 million worldwide. So it was quite successful. And I think it maybe does not make the top 10 yet worldwide. No, it doesn't.
No. But it makes it domestic, which is insane.
Number 1, Oz the Great and Powerful. Number 2 is an even more ill-advised quasi-family movie set in the world of children's fantasy.
Huh. Even more ill-advised.
Yes.
Set in the world of children's fantasy. Is it opening this weekend?
No, it opened last weekend. It was a bomb, and it's made $43 million in 2 weeks.
Huh. Is it based on... It's based on a pre-existing children's fantasy?
It's based on a fairy tale.
Is it Pan?
No.
Huh.
If Oz does not exist, this is like, doesn't exist on like quantum levels. Like physicists could not find traces of it in anyone's atoms.
Okay, it's not Mirror Mirror.
No.
It is, but I'm on the right zone. It's like one of those canonical fairy tale.
Yeah, it's a canonical fairy tale.
It's a riff. Dana, do you have any instinct on this?
I have no idea.
Okay. It's directed by a canceled person.
It's directed by a canceled
Highly
person.
canceled.
It's not Brett Ratner's Hercules.
No.
Is it I Love You, Daddy?
Yeah, open to. I mean, $43 million. It was very delayed. I think it came out like a year after it was supposed to. Okay. Well, then say it.
Jack the Giant Slayer.
Correct. You had to struggle to think of the title. But
yeah.
Yes.
It is Bryan Singer's Jack the Giant Slayer, starring Nicholas Hoult and Ewan McGregor, among other people.
So, is that live action or animated?
Live action.
Oh, no.
It's live action like this is live action.
The
Mostly
most...
CGI.
I can't believe these movies came out in back-to-back weekends,
Yes.
too. Yeah.
Yes. Isn't that ridiculous?
That's like a 2-car pileup. The most insane thing about that movie is that Bryan Singer really wanted to direct X-Men First Class and had signed up for this. And he asked Warner Brothers to let him push back Jack the Giant Slayer in order to do First Class. And they were like, no. And if you quit, we'll sue you. They were so adamant about making that movie, making it with Singer right away that they were like, don't you dare fucking quit this movie. This is a go. We're not stopping this for anything.
I know we're in the box office game, but I feel like we'd be one more Oz Great and Powerful detail that we didn't mention at all is Bruce Campbell's in it briefly.
Oh, yeah. God. A movie so depressing we can't even conjure up the energy to discuss the Bruce cameo.
I know, but he's there, and I just want to let him, he showed up. He put on the fake mustache.
He's a Winkleguard or fucking whatever.
Yes, he is. He's fine.
A Winky Dinky guard or some shit.
I'll throw this movie in the trash.
He should have played Oz.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, he'd be good.
Imagine if Robert Downey Jr. dropped out and Sam Raimi was like, look, we're 2 weeks away from filming. You gotta hire Bruce Campbell or I'm quitting. What's number 3 at the box office?
It's a comedy. It's a comedy launching a new star. She's breaking out as the star of this film.
Huh.
She's being paired with a guy who's in a lot
Thief.
of comedies. It's Identity Thief.
Yeah.
Jason Bateman
a big
is
hit.
a guy, and Melissa McCarthy is the thief of his identity.
Yeah.
I guess.
Not a good movie, big hit.
Not a good movie, big hit. Agree with both of those things. Number 4 is a new movie this week. Mostly forgotten. I feel like you invoked it recently, Griffin.
Huh.
It's like a crime thriller starring one of my favorite actors.
Colin Farrell?
Yep.
It's the one I invoked it because it was weirdly produced by the WWE. Is it what's it called?
Correct.
Dead Man Down?
It's called Dead Man Down. It is a Colin Farrell film that I've never seen.
Vince McMahon.
It's from the guy who directed the Swedish Girl with a Dragon Tattoo movie.
Right. Yes.
And so Numi Rapace is in it, and Dominic Cooper and Terrence Howard.
Sounds like a fun time, actually.
Dead Man Down.
It's kind of incredible you haven't seen that. Yeah.
I mean, yeah. But it's opening number 4 at $5 million. Okay. So I don't know. No one's really seeing it. Number 5 is an action thriller that I feel like you have said is not bad, Griffin. It's kind of one of the last movies starring this guy before he just becomes a 4-quadrant guy.
Huh. Oh, is it Contraband?
It's not Contraband. That's Mark Wahlberg, which is another good choice for what I'm describing. Similar guy. Used to make movies like this.
The Rock?
The Rock, Dwayne Johnson himself.
And this is one I like. Is it Snitch?
It's Snitch. Do you like Snitch? Am I
Yes.
wrong? I can't remember.
Snitch, low-key good.
Yeah, right? Snitch is one you sort of stick up for.
Snitch I stick up for, and not only that, if this was before our podcast existed, I would have given Bernthal a supporting Oscar nomination for Snitch. I would have given him a supporting blankie.
Yeah, he can give me support anytime.
Bernthal like snitches the shit out of that movie. No, Snitch low-key good.
But right, isn't that the end of Dwayne doing,
Yeah,
like Walking Tall-esque movies, right?
I think it's the last one. And Snitch is like much more of a sort of meat and potatoes drama as well. It's kind of he's acting. Oh, it's a Rick Romanois.
Yeah, it's this year he has Snitch, he has Pain and Gain, he's Fast and Furious 6, obviously, but it's like next year's Hercules, and then it's Furious 7, San Andreas, Central Intelligence, Moana, Fate of the Furious, Baywatch, Jumanji, Rampage, Skyscraper. It's all big movies that are rock-centric.
And fucking Snitch, Dwayne Johnson, Barry Pepper, Benjamin Bratt, Harold Perrineau, Susan Sarandon, John Bernthal, Michael K. Williams, David Harbour.
Sounds good.
That's good.
Good cast.
Snitch low-key good.
That's the box office. We've also got, what the fuck is this? 21 and Over?
Oh, that's the Miles Teller fake ID beer run movie.
I feel like that was a movie that had a lot of different names at certain points.
I
That
think
sounds right.
So that's one of that run of Superbad, post Superbad, R-rated teen boy movies that I auditioned for.
There was another one just like this, but with Zac Efron, right?
Well, that's
I think it's 17 again.
That awkward moment.
That awkward moment.
Oh, that
yeah.
awkward moment. Ugh.
That's a little more. Dating is tough.
Oh.
21 and over is in the Project X.
This one is like, they're 21 now, so they're going to do it. Oh.
The kids fucking go crazy.
I just saw, speaking of Miles Teller, I just saw Top Gun Maverick, in which he is behaving himself, is the best way to put that performance.
Interesting.
You know what I mean? Not in a bad way, but that just feels like Tom Cruise took him aside and was like, look, you got one more shot.
You got one? Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, just fucking give a normal performance in this. Like, I know you're a pretty good actor. And he's like, all right, sure, fine.
Is he good in it?
Weird. Yeah, he's totally good. He's fine.
Wow.
But like, he's also not particularly interesting. Like, it's fine. I know he's a Kaczynski guy. I know, so it's not just Tom Cruise. Like, he did Only the Brave. He's in the new Kaczynski movie as well. So like, obviously Kaczynski likes him. But yeah, just kind of feels like someone sat him down and was like, how many more blockbusters are you looking to be in? Is it, if it's more than one, then
God, 21 and over is Justin Chon, Miles Teller, Skylar Aston.
It's a real snapshot.
They really tried. They were spreading it wide to see what would happen.
Directed by the writers of Hangover. That was the other big thing with
John Lucas Scott Moore. Right. Speaking of Zac Efron, he's not in this, but he might as well have been. Safe Haven. Remember that?
Oh.
It's Duhamel, right?
Oh, yeah.
Safe
Julianne
Haven.
Hough.
Safe Haven has a quietly insane twist ending.
We can't talk about that. No,
I
we can't.
I saw Safe Haven with Bobby Finger. Look at the Safe Haven Wikipedia page. That's all I'm telling people.
I feel like we have mentioned this on a different episode, Griffin. It rings a bell that there's some wild.
Probably a Bobby episode. But that's a Lasse Hallström movie, isn't it?
Yeah.
Insane.
Then you've got Silver Linings Playbook hanging around. You've got something called Escape from Planet Earth. Don't really remember that. Seems to be a Weinstein movie.
Yeah, that's a Brendan Fraser animated film, CGI movie that doesn't exist. Yeah.
And then you have, of course, the Last Exorcism Part 2. They should have sued. They said the last one was the last exorcism.
I know. They should have They should have called it the second to last exorcism.
This is like when they did the Neverending Story Part 2. Come on.
Get the fuck out of here.
You said the last one was. That's it. Yeah, so it goes on to be a hit. It makes enough money to justify a sequel and to justify another Sam Raimi movie quickly. We get neither because everyone smelled that this thing was a rotting corpse.
Yeah.
Like, that's really what it is.
It is one of those things where, like, they had, like, mapped up plans of, like, if this movie works, we build a whole Oz land at Disney. We'll keep this going. We'll stay in the world of Oz for decades.
Oz.
Right. And then just everyone was like, there's no energy for this.
No actors seemed like they wanted to be in this.
No. It's like, you're going to do sequels? And they're like, well, we're contractually obligated.
But they pushed through on Maleficent 2 and on Alice 2 many years too late when the energy was clearly gone and both of those movies flatlined. And this, it just felt like within 3 months of it coming out, they were like, yeah, we're probably not going to do that.
Maleficent 2 low-key made $500 million.
That's insane.
$500 million. Ed Skrein is the main villain in it.
Wow.
Ed Skrein. He's a dark fae, of course.
Yeah.
All right. We're done.
We're very done.
Yeah.
With Oz Forever. And thank God. One reason we never did Sam Raimi was we didn't want this to be the last movie in his fucking filmography.
For the entire run of our podcast, this had been his last film.
And now we don't have to end on the note of like, well, it would be nice if he made another movie. Now the note can be, he had another movie and we'll talk about it next week.
Yeah, and you know what? It's nice that whatever you think of Multiverse of Madness, it is definitively not this.
And he seems energized to make something new soon.
And people are giving him credit. Like, I feel like people are largely giving him credit for that movie and reacting positively to the stuff that he contributes. And hopefully it means that the next person who hires Sam Raimi to make a movie will let him be Sam Raimi.
Yeah.
Dana, thank you so much for coming back on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. What a pleasure.
I hope it was. You'll get a better movie eventually. I'm sorry.
I had fun.
Yeah, Dana, don't worry. You'll get a better movie in about 6 to 8 months when we cover another movie about a bad witch.
I want both parts of the Wicked movie.
Witches with bad ex-boyfriends.
Yeah, perfect.
Your book?
Yeah, Anatomy, a Love Story. Buy it wherever books are sold.
New York Times bestseller.
New York Times bestseller.
Yeah.
You can buy it almost anywhere in the world.
Reese Witherspoon likes it.
My close personal friend, Reese Witherspoon, likes the book. Yeah, and listen to the podcast Noble Blood if you want the exact opposite vibe of this podcast.
Perfect. Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Noble Blood, slightly more, hangs together a little tighter than Blank Check, I would say. Also
then Oz the Great and Powerful, the ultimate compliment. It's a little tighter than Oz the Great and Powerful.
Just a little tighter. Every episode script is a little tighter than this.
A little bit tighter than Oz the Great and Powerful. Thank you so much for being here, Dana. And thank you all so much for listening. Please remember to rate, review, and subscribe. Thank you to Marie Barty for our social media and helping to produce the show. Thank you to AJ McKee and Alex Barron for our editing, JJ Birch for our research, Leigh Montgomery and the Great American Novel for our theme song, Joe Bowen and Pat Reynolds for our artwork. You can go to blankcheckpod.com for links to all sorts of nerdy shit. Go to patreon.com/blankcheck for Blank Check special features. We're doing commentaries on the Batman movies we haven't covered before. #not all Batmen. Tune in next week for the end of this Yellow Brick Road, the Road of Raimi, with Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. Ha 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 ha. Ha 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 ha. Indeed. And as always, China Girl Innocent.